the dawn of a new era as the revamped Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park hosts the most exotic race cars in the Southern Hemisphere at the Hampton Downs Australian GT 101 Endurance Race. Perfect conditions in the North Waikato for the first race of the new look Hampton Downs. G'day, welcome to welcome to CRC Motorsport. My name's Sean Summerfield and this is it. Live coverage of the Hampton Downs 101, and what a grid. Would you look at this? The Australian GTs have crossed the Tasman for the third race of the Endurance Series. Stunning cars, some superstar drivers, all set to tackle the 400-kilometre race, which doubles as the grand and long-awaited opening of the new look Hampton Downs.
We're here at Hampton Downs. What an awesome place. It's been 14 months in the making. I took it over in July last year. It's built to hold international events and major race events. I've been around the world looking at a lot of tracks, and I've really just hinched the good bits. We've learned so much from Highlands, and if you're just going to have a racetrack with people going round and round, it's got a limited future. Any racetrack now needs to be treated as a business, and as a business you need to keep on finding new frontiers and new opportunities, and you have to grow your business. Everybody's excited, everybody's very complimentary, a little bit like when we built Highlands. It's a new kind of track and everybody's quite excited about it. We've gone all out, and people talk about how much I've spent, but I've spent it for the next 20 years. Obviously the track extension, it was always planned, so I couldn't change the shape of it. We changed a little bit of the camber and the apexes and stuff to make it, as I do, more tricky than it should be. But it's going to sort the men from the boys. I think there's about 9 projects that have been going on. The drifting skid pan, the members' garages, the membership model, which has been successful, the corporate suites, the party pavilion, the go-kart track, the industrial building. It's been a bit of a stressful time, but look, I hope and wish that we all have a safe and bloody good time, and we'll put on a good show, and that's my gig. I want to put on a good show. If my name's attached to it, it needs to be good.
You could say I'm either brave or stupid going live on TV with Tony Quinn, the man that makes Billy Connolly sound like a priest, but I'm going to go with it. How happy are you right now, Tony?
I'm beeping happy, to be fair. This has been an awesome weekend. It's been a terrific journey to get to this point. We've only got another couple of hours or 3 hours to go, and we'll have a winner of the first HD 101. And, I just think a picture tells 1,000 words, and it's been a great experience for the whole team. There hasn't been any major disasters. The guys are loving it. They'll put on a good show this afternoon. The support categories have been awesome, and the crowds have been very complimentary. So happy all round, I think.
How's it feel? You've put all the time, effort and money, of course, into this circuit. Now, live on TV is your own series, the GTs, and you're racing in it. You can't really ask for any more sort of responsibility, Tony.
Yeah, look, I've just debated that with myself all morning, and I really shouldn't do it because I just feel drained, to be honest. But being the tough little Scotsman that I am, I'm going to have a crack at it. And, Murphy will do a good job anyway. I'll just have to fill in the gaps. So, look, the field is full of very competent drivers, and we'll just see how we go on. I mean, nobody can predict who's going to win this race. It's impossible. So the best man will win. That's what'll happen.
And he's not even claiming hometown advantage. So I'll let you go and get ready for the race. Good luck, and hey, thank you on behalf of everyone that loves motorsport.
Thank you.
Rightio. Now, he wouldn't do it, believe it or not. He got Murph, his co-driver, to take us for a hot lap around the new 4-kilometre circuit.
Well, welcome aboard the RJ's Aston Martin V12. Greg Murphy here, taking for a lap around the Hampton Downs circuit. Coming down the front straight now, across the start-finish line into the awesome Turn 1 that drops away. You can't see the entry of it until you're well over the crest. Down, grabbing the apex, hard on the gas again. Third or fourth gear in the Aston, and then hard down this long straight. There's the old turn 2 going straight past it. We join the international circuit now down this big long straight in 5th gear, hard on the brakes into the ABS down to this tight turn 2, 1st or 2nd gear, depending on the grip level we got in the Aston. So far we've been using 1st, being we're still using a few of the old tyres. And then out of turn 2 again, short run to turn 3, and it just keeps going round and round and round turn 4 here, and just keeps going and going and going. A late apex, great little fall away there as you enter the famous, and it will be famous, double bastard corner. So up over a crest, you can't see too much of the corner again until you get to the top of it. Apexing late in the piece, then back onto the old circuit, down to the tight hairpin, 1st gear out of here. Big bump there at the midway through, which unsettles the car. Traction control coming on plenty as we now drop away to the left through the Porsche corner. Big new piece of seal there, which giving us plenty of grip. Hard on the gas again. Traction control just coming in up to 4th, 5th gear into the final corner of the lap, already coming to an end very quickly. And we're talking around sort of 1 minute 32 on this lap. The big double apex sweeper again, hard on the throttle, 3rd, 4th gear, up to 5th gear, and then 6th gear as we approach the final part of the lap and over the start-finish straight, which completes the lap of this awesome international circuit here at Hampton Downs.
Yes, it's a really stunning grid of cars, and you'll notice something about the Aussie GTs is they're all different. We've got Audis, we've got Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Porsches, McLarens. I've probably left some out, Mercedes-Benz. Mike Cinch, we see it so often in motorsport, this talk of parity, getting the cars the same. Otherwise, you end up with Formula One and just a couple of cars winning. Yep. How do they do this, and how are these cars going to be kept even over 400 Ks?
Well, you know, it's not easy. All these cars, as you say, the aero's different. You know, the tyre packages work better on some of the cars, but they use a controlled pit stop. And during the race, they've got to do 2 of these. If you have a pro driver and an amateur driver in the car, you get a penalty. And the longest penalty today, they're going to sit there for 2 minutes, 25 seconds. The guys that have got 2 amateurs might only stop for 80 seconds. So that's the way they sort of level it out, and it works very, very well.
And what's really cool is we've got the mix of cars. We've got V12s, we've got flat 6, there's V10s, there's you name it, it's all here. And that's probably quite nice that despite all these different shapes and sizes of engines, they're sort of even.
Well, the manufacturers do a great job themselves of controlling this to a certain point. But, you know, we had 6 different manufacturers in the top 10, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, you look at the price of these cars, and they need to be good, $750,000 for most of them, up to some of the new Ferrari 488, $1 million for that car. But the manufacturers are getting right behind this, and we see more and more committing to it. Honda, they've just committed an NSX to the GT program, so it's going to be great to see that here as well.
Now, I'm going to go talk to some of the drivers in a sec, but I want you to give me the tip. Who should we look out for? We've got a Lambo on pole, but someone said that was just a quick lap.
Well, you know, David Russell and Largo, a great combination. They've raced at places like Spa. They know the combination really well. I think Christopher Mees, I have to say, that car is going to be the one to watch throughout this race.
Got to say that Audi R8 does look very, very sexy. In fact, it's hard to find a car that doesn't look incredibly stunning. And wait till you get a close look at the Merc with that big bonnet. Oh, yes, I know, yeah, I know. Hey, but they're not the only cars. They're the big cars. There's also some little cars racing this weekend, the Aussie racing cars. And they may look small, but don't be fooled. They're basically super bikes with 4 wheels. They're very fast and very mad.
Aussie racing cars is a really cool Australian class. There's so much tight, close racing. It's hard, it's fast. All the cars are identical, so it makes it nice and even for everyone. And yeah, it's just great fun. So this weekend we're running a Cam's Trans-Tasman Women's Challenge, which is a cool little challenge that they're doing between Alyssa and I, Aussie versus the Kiwi. In race 2, they're starting us off 1st and 2nd, and the rest of the field a few grid spots back, and just giving us a little go to duel with each other.
It's a cool challenge that they've set up for us with me and Charlotte, so they're going to start us off the front and basically just go head to head with Aussie and Kiwi and see what we can do. I might be taller than me, I might be older, but I'm still going to win it. So
I'm going to kick some Kiwi butt.
be better at rugby, so.
Right, get your helmets on, girls.
There was some tough racing. We were elbow to elbow most of the time.
It was a really good race. First few laps were really close, but unfortunately I made a bit of a mistake and managed to get a car in between us, so we couldn't catch up. But I had really great fun, and thanks to Charlotte for coming over and for the great racing.
It's definitely a great category to be part of. At the moment, we've already got 4 girls running in Aussie racing cars, 5 including Alyssa. And it's just such a great category. They look after the females. We actually have a women's championship challenge, so there's a trophy awarded to the quickest female after the end of every weekend. It's really great.
Yep. Okay. Okay, so welcome back to CRC Motorsports. We bring you to Hampton Downs 101. Now these cars, we know they're beautiful, but let's find out a little bit more about the Australian GTs. Mike. Yep.
You want my life on him? You may as well. He got me. So you get quite a bit of cars. They're more in car cutaways. So. You're talking about car cutaways. That's dangerous, actually. Yeah.
Yep. Welcome to live TV.
Hey, just mix it up. Who cares?
Really is a stunning day here. What a perfect conditions for the grand opening of this new look Hampton Downs. And of course, speaking of looks, you don't get a better looking grid than the Australian GTs. Now this race is of course called the Hampton Downs 101. So here's the 101 on the Australian GTs.
Australian GT is the sexiest cars in the world at the one race, on the one racetrack, at the one time. You can't get a better collection of cars anywhere, and the fact that they all race together at the same time, you know, with some of the world's greatest drivers, you kind of got this real sexy international flavour to it, so it's really exotic.
They're the pinnacle, aren't they? They're just so badass. Every time I get in it, I've just got this grin on my face. Like anyone that thinks looking outside, oh, look at him just cruising around in his Aston Martin. No, it is rough. It's just fast, it's intense, it's loud. You're just in there, just go, thinking, well, I'm just going to throw it at the wall and see if it sticks.
We encourage people to come and have a look, families, kids. Everyone wants to have a photo of the nice new Mercedes and go and explain it to their friends that they've seen the best that there is in the world.
You can get right up close. We had a heap of people in the garage here earlier on today, and they're just sort of amazed. And we got the BMW here right alongside us, which you couldn't get really two totally different sort of cars. You know, one front engine, rear-wheel drive, one's rear engine, rear-wheel drive. And
all the cars are different. Whilst they are eventually at the end, they have the same sort of similar lap time, having the same driver in it. They do have different sort of capabilities and different disadvantages. So when you mix it up, it plans for really good racing.
The cars look fantastic. In most cases, they're all
They're all dream cars, you know, they're cars that you'd love to own one day, and they're fast. They brake late, they make a good noise, and they're exciting.
So this, to me, is the future of motorsport in this part of the world, especially now with Tony owning both Hampton Downs and Highlands. For me, being a Kiwi, it's a good step because these cars are going to be racing in New Zealand for a lot longer.
So yesterday, a great top 10 shootout, and it was the oldest car on the grid, the Largo Russell Lamborghini Gallardo, that came to pole position alongside the Madeki father and son combo and the Aston Martin. Simmons and Caruso and Chris Mees, the champion, on the second row. Then Tony Quinn and Greg Murphy claiming P5. Story and Hackett. Here we Dom Story, a Kiwi in the Mercedes, alongside the Porsche of Martin and Palachi. We've got Marshall and Morecambe in P9. And then Mad Mike, a bit of a whoopsie on his hot lap, and he finished 10th. But I'm with now the driver, David Russell. They might have written off this car and said, oh, look, it's the oldest car on the grid. What did you do?
Oh, look, we turned up here. The car was pretty good. All the guys at Largo Racing did a fantastic job repairing the car. And to be honest, we rolled out. The car was pretty good. And one thing that caught us out, you know, the character of the circuit's a little bit bumpy, so we had to make some changes. But from then, we've been really happy. Roger settled in. He did a great job in qualifying. Went a lot faster than he did in practice. So that sort of set us up to be in the top 10 shootout. And, yeah, we did a good enough lap to be on the front. So.
I won't say who said it, but someone said, that's one quick lap. They've got to do 400 now.
Yeah, exactly. Look, you know, the whole weekend we've been focused on the race. It was good, obviously, to be on pole, but we're pretty focused on the race and making sure we've got a good race car. So I think we sort of compromised that a little bit over one lap. So I think really, possibly yesterday we could have been a little bit quicker. But yeah, we've got a race car on our hands here, not a qualifier.
Good luck.
Cool, thanks.
Let's go for a wander down this grid, and everywhere you look, the cars are special. Now, look at this one, Caruso and Simmons. Now, these guys, you've got a supercar driver here alongside a bloke, Simmons, who got the drive by being quick on Gran Turismo PlayStation. How about that? I want to grab this guy here, Christopher Mees. Come over here, Chris. Of course, the defending champion. We talk about hired guns in this series. You are the hired gun.
Well, nice to hear.
So you're over here, obviously, from Germany. A lot of guys want to measure themselves against you. How hard is it to stay on top of this pack?
Well, you know, they all can drive. They're all professionals. They're all really, really good. Experience and young guns as well. So it's never easy to be in front. And you see the field is so tight together, so close together that it just was enough for P4 in the qualifying.
And I tell you, this car looks amazing, the R8 on the circuit. How much better is it than the old R8?
Oh, well, you know, it's another step. You know, it's a better race car. It's more a race car. You know, we changed gearbox and suspension and so on. You know, it's a proper race car right now, and it's just lovely to drive.
Sweet. I'll let you go think about being the man to beat.
Thank you.
Christopher Mees, deadly quick. I tell you what, though, look at this. This has to be the angriest looking car you'll see, and I'm going to duck around because Dom Story is a guy. Saw him years ago do well in scholarships and whatnot. Now you're a driving instructor, Dom. In fact, both of you and Hackett are driving instructors, and here you are on the third row.
Absolutely, yeah. So we work for Mercedes-Benz. Pete runs Mercedes-Benz driving academy throughout Asia, Australia, New Zealand. So I work for him full time, but on the weekends I get to drive this. So you know, there's pros and cons, I guess. Now
you set a lap record at Sydney, so you're really getting the hang of these cars. What's it like to muscle something this big around Hampton Downs?
Look, to be honest, it's an easy car to drive. It reminds me a lot of, you know, back in the single-seater days. It's got a lot of aero, obviously, as you can see with the wings and on the front there, and it creates a lot of downforce. So it's very similar to driving that, and I think that's why I can extract the speed out of it like I have so far.
Enjoy the drive.
Thank you. Should be good.
Good to see the young Kiwis doing so well. Nathan Martin over there in the Porsche 911, of course, a driver in the old days of A1GP. As we head down a little bit now, because I can see the orange McLaren. And the bloke who yesterday brought a bit of drifting to the... in fact, he's probably sick of people talking about the drifting in the top 10 shootout, Mad Mike. But this is something very new for you, isn't it?
Yep, this is my third day circuit racing. But yeah, we've managed to qualify the car in the top 10 between me and Clark. So yeah, really stoked.
How are you dialing into this car?
Just calm, be calm. You know, it's such a fast car. It's very responsive, and you know, you go from driving the RX-7 where we've been out at lunchtime driving like a maniac, and here you just have to really deep breaths, and you know, the input needs to be smooth, but just also learning the tyre and the car and everything. But, we've adapted really, really quick. We've got some good times. We've got a solid, we didn't qualify number 1, but overall over 101 laps, we're looking like we could finish in the pointy end.
The question everyone's going to ask is, can you behave for 101 laps?
Well, that's split between me and Clark, but that's it. Stay consistent, stay focused. I've been doing a lot of training for this. It's an amazing opportunity from Tony Quinn, and look at this, we're like half an hour out of Auckland CBD, the venue, Hampton Downs. The fans here are just amazing, so it's just awesome for New Zealand motorsport, and I'm just stoked to be a part of it all.
Now, alive, I think we've got a quick bit of time. If I can quickly duck over here, because I can see one more guy, Kiwi driver, Stephen Richards. Come over here, mate, because this is one of the newer cars, the GT Series. Quickly, good to see you back on the right side, because you were born in New Zealand, Stephen Richards. How's the new car going?
It's going great this weekend. I must admit, we thought after getting here that it might be a bit challenging for our car, but it's turned out really good. So we're pretty pumped, actually.
Well, good luck for the race, mate. She's going to be a ripper.
Thanks, Phil.
Some great-looking cars. Looking forward to the coverage here on 3. It is going to be a ripper. Stay tuned for a big afternoon.
We're down here at the go-karts. These things are brand new. Look, I mean, they literally haven't even done a lap around this amazing track. This is the best-looking go-kart track I've seen here in New Zealand.
The first keep coming, not only the chance to be the first around the international circuit in the GT cars, we get to have a run in the go-karts against all of the boys before the weekend gets heavy.
It's so much fun. It's got to be the best hire kart track in the world, doesn't it? That's just fantastic.
There's lots of cool undulation, cool curb usage. It was really cool.
First time around a new track and new karts and plenty of racing buddies, so next time you come down, have a crack. It's good fun.
Yeah, where do you want me? Here? Or do you want the Hampton Downs sign? Does that work? The national anthem here is Timura. To Hampton Downs as we count down to the 101 race. This really is a huge day for New Zealand motorsport, for New Zealand sport. To sing the national anthem, here's Timura Morrison.
Who's giving Sheree
Timura. Here's Tim Morrison. Timura Morrison. This is CRC Motorsport on 3, counting down to the Hampton Downs 101, the opening of this fantastic new circuit. It's a big day for New Zealand, for motorsport, New Zealand motorsport. And to sing the national anthem, here's Timura Morrison. Timura Morrison. Oh, here's Timura Morrison.
As long as you can think you can get from there.
Timura. Welcome back to CRC Motorsport on 3 on what is a huge day, not just for New Zealand motorsport, but New Zealand sport. The grand opening of the new look Hampton Downs circuit. What an amazing place set for an amazing race. 101 laps, 400 kilometres. And to kick off things, let's catch up with Temura Morrison with the national anthem.
E hoa atua o ngā iwi matura a ta whakarongona me aroha noa kia hua ko te pai kia tau toa ta whai mana ki tia mai a te aroa. God of nations, at thy feet, in the bonds of love we meet. Hear our voices, we entreat. God, defend our free land. God, Pacific's triple star, from the shafts of strife and war, make her praises heard afar. God, defend New Zealand. Taupiri te maunga. Wai kato te awa. Ka hui ari ki tu haitia. E nguru nai. Wai kato tainui. E nguru nai. Kui ya ha ha. Maie te tawhito. Maie te kahui o ngā riki. Maie
Well, the challenge has been set. Hampton Downs is now open for business. We are racing right after this here on 3.
Located just outside New Zealand's adventure capital, Queenstown, the stunning Highlands Motorsport Park plays host to the final rounds of the Australian GT and the Australian Endurance Championships. The action-packed 2015 Highlands 101 concluded with a thrilling battle for the lead, featuring the Mercedes of Jack Le Brocq, the McLaren of Shane van Gisbergen, and the Audi of Christopher Mies. The crowd were on their feet as SVG and Mies hounded the back of the Mercedes lap after lap.
Launch it down the inside. Can he get it to stick? He's got it done. Van
Christopher
Gisbergen
Mies in there also.
Mies has gone through with him, and this place has gone nuts.
So don't miss the 2016 Highlands 101, November 11 to 13. Book your tickets at ticketmaster.co.nz.
I've got Craig and Mike. 2 of them. Okay, sweet. So how long do you want us to chat for?
1+1.
Well, it literally is the biggest race in New Zealand this year. Yep. Do you want to go down to buy Tony's car? It's the biggest race in New Zealand this year, 400 kilometres. Most impressive cars on the US circuit. And for the action, Jamie McCarthy and Craig Denyer. So I don't know if you saw any of the stuff we chatted about before.
No.
Yeah, just
mate.
Jamie in here, mate.
Yep. Yeah, maybe look, do you want to get a shot of the Ferrari and the... Sorry, you've got to go to commentary. Okay. Go, Mike.
Thank you. What are we talking about?
What do you want us to talk about now? Just the different cars?
Or
Or?
Nismo. It's a debut at this track for those boys.
Is it new in the series?
Yeah, debut in the series.
Oh, right.
Yep. So, clearly, you know, there's a dominance of Audis. Audis is
Yeah.
6,
Okay.
7.
Yeah,
Audis.
okay. Hey, Nige, can we move a little bit after about this car? We can just show the Nissan, or can we get a shot of the Nissan? Yeah. Chris, we'll see the Nissan here? Yeah, so we'll refer to that car. Yeah.
And it's got a big
Yeah.
name. Nissan GTR Nismo.
Race, but unfortunately we didn't get approval. But Tony obviously come up with a great idea of driving the Aston around and taking people for hot laps over the weekend. All those things you look at, it's quite daunting to see the car, and knowing it's got 3 different maps. They told me don't even worry about 1 or 2, go to 3, which is a bit over 800 horsepower. Tell by the people around that it definitely attracts an attention. I suppose you just got to put that little sort of dollar figure of what it's worth out of your brain when you drive it, because you want to have a bit of fun. But yeah, really impressed.
You're watching CRC Motorsport on 3, counting down to the start of the Hampton Downs 101. Some stunning cars on the grid, including this, I want to just call it Godzilla, but I know Mike Cinch is going to tell me now that's not enough. It's got a longer name than that as it makes its debut at the track.
Well, absolutely makes a debut in the Australian GT Championship, and it's the Nissan GTR Nismo GT3. It's a mouthful, and it's an amazing car for this weekend.
That's why I say Godzilla.
I figured that. Now, I mean, on board that car, you've got a very, very experienced driver in Michael Caruso. The other driver of that car, Matt Simmons, as you said before, is a PlayStation whiz, and he got into this through the Nismo Academy, which they take, good gamers and put them into real race cars.
So there you go. If you're playing your PlayStation at home, you can end up in the Australian GTs. And then behind us, we've got a more typical GT car in the Aston Martin, and Murphy behind the wheel.
Yeah, Murphy behind the wheel, coming out of what he called retirement. I'm not sure he ever did fully retire, but that car is a favourite of Tony Quinn's. He's always had Astons. He's dabbled with Moslers and Ferraris and in the McLaren, but straight back into the Aston, and that is a car that fits him like a glove.
Yes, we are set for a huge race. This really is the biggest race this year. The best-looking grid, 400 Ks, and calling the action, Jamie McCarthy and Craig Denyer.
Thank you, Sean. Beautiful conditions here at Hampton Downs.
It's the dawn of a new era as the revamped Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park hosts the most exotic race cars in the Southern Hemisphere at the Hampton Downs Australian GT 101 Endurance Race.
Hampton Downs, absolutely stunning venue, the new and improved Hampton Downs Motorsport Events Centre. And this is where we will be racing this afternoon for the third and penultimate round, the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship. I'm Jamie McCarthy. Big welcome to our Australian viewers on Fox Sports and to the viewers all around the world as well watching the live stream. We'll be bringing you all of the action here this afternoon on TV3. I'll be joined in commentary from Australia, Craig Denyer. Craig, welcome to New Zealand. How good has it been this weekend so far? And we haven't even got to the motor race yet.
Mate, as long as we don't have to talk about the rugby, we'll have a great afternoon, I'm sure.
Oh, we're going to start like that, are we? Hey, no problems. It hasn't gone well in the cricket. But, hey, what a lineup of cars and stars. Some of the most exotic race cars you will see anywhere on the planet.
It's really the Growth Performance Touring Car or Sports Car Championship worldwide now, GT3, and you can see how much it's exploded, particularly in the last couple of years in Australia and now New Zealand. And Tony Quinn put a fantastic track together here at Hampton Downs. So you've got an international racetrack, the most superb international sports cars, and a classy field too of international drivers.
And a big crowd on hand as well. Let's have a look at the track layout, the new track layout here at Hampton Downs. We knew it was a fantastic motor racing circuit to start, about 50 minutes south of Auckland CBD. And from turn number 1, we now go down to turn number 2 off the long straight, the fastest part of the circuit to the Foster's hairpin. Then quite a tricky sequence of corners from Kev's Carousel through the swampy curves and the 2 DB corners, which rejoins the existing circuit. High pull hairpin, maximum drive down off the Porsche tipper with that big elevation change, and that sets up the all-important run through the sweeper and the run up to the hill to complete the lap. So that last corner is probably one of the more crucial corners on the motor racing circuit. Not so reliant on the aero packages with these cars, that corner notably is, but a lot of the teams have been looking for turn and mechanical grip throughout the weekend.
One of the things that you don't quite pick up too in the television coverage, Jamie, is obviously the elevation changes that you actually talked about. I mean, turn 1, Pirelli corner, a massive drop down and very hard to see the apex on entry to that corner.
Yeah, it is pretty much a blind approach. Just see a shot there of David Russell starting behind the wheel of the Roger Largo Lamborghini. Madecki family, George and Andrew there in the number 95 Lubramax Aston, and they were last start winners at round 2 of the Australian Endurance Championship.
Very quick and a good quick driver combination, so this will be very, very strong. The fuel burn for this car will be high. We're not sure whether it'll have to lean out in the middle session or not to make the fuel window, and of course all of that depends on safety cars, but yeah, they'll be a strong combo.
There's going to be different strategies to talk about. There's going to be fuel situations to talk about, 101 laps, the possible happening of a safety car, which we haven't seen at the first 2 rounds of the Endurance Championship in Australia.
No, I think at Sydney Motorsport Park and also at Phillip Island, they're probably a bit too scared to lean on each other too much in the high-speed corners of those tracks. But here, it's a little different. You know, quite a second and some cars or cases first-gear corners. I expect there'll be a lot more closer racing.
So a huge crowd here at Hampton Downs. Fantastic to see so many people about to enjoy these race cars as we head off on the formation laps. And here is the grid as we go through. Roger Largo, David Russell starting off the pole, George Madecki and Andrew Madecki alongside. Then we go back to Matthew Simmons, Michael Caruso in the Nissan, Tony Bates, Christopher Mees in the Audi R8. Row 3, Tony Quinn, Greg Murphy in the Aston Martin, Peter Hackett, Dominic Story in the Mercedes AMG GT3.
First of the Porsches, John Martin and Padiachi, then Kadaris and Marcus Marshall, Clark Quinn, Mike Woodett, the big drifter, and Grant Denyer, Nathan Morton back there on row 5 in the McLaren.
Then it's back to row 6 with Stevie Richards and Max Twigg. Steve Richards just missed the top 10 shootout by 7/100ths of a second. Daniel Bilski paired with Garth Tander, the very experienced Garth Tander. Mark Griffith, Jack Perkins alongside Ash Samadi and Tony D'Alberto. From row 8, Greg Taylor, Nathan Antunis, Richard Moore and Tony Longhurst.
Liam Talbot, Jake Foraker in the Audi, Adrian Dietz and Cam McConville very quick in this morning's warm-up in the Ferrari. Found the sweet spot at last. Ellingham and Miles in the Audi, and then Peter Edwards and Graham Smythe in the Ferrari 458.
And completing the lineup, it'll be Andrew McPherson, Brad Shields in the Porsche 997 GT3R, Clark Proctor and Andrew Porter. New Kiwi combination in a newly imported GTR Nissan, and Nick Chester and John DeVeth in one of the big booming Camaro GT3s.
So 2 withdrawn from the weekend. Scotty Taylor, Craig Baird, the Mercedes. Unfortunately, Scotty had a bad accident at the Gold Coast 600 last weekend in the Carrera Cup race and hurt his leg quite severely. So hopefully back for Highlands Park, but not quite sure. And the Trass Family Motorsport Ferrari too scratched after a little incident yesterday when a rear upright broke in the car, and clearly they couldn't get parts fixed in time for that.
And they've been a very good combination here locally in New Zealand with the North Island and South Island Endurance Championship. Notably here, we're just looking at the track temperatures, Craig, 32.1 degrees. That is the hottest track temperature we have seen here over the last 3 days with practice qualifying and now going into this race. So this brings the Pirelli tyre package probably a lot closer to the mark where they need to be at their optimum operating temperatures.
Rolling start, of course. They'll do 2 formation laps, then take the green flag. And a lot of things to come into play. Driver seating strategy, safety cars, 2 compulsory time pit stops for all teams, 6 different manufacturers in the top 6 in qualifying. How good is that? 7 different cars in the top 10, 10 different manufacturers in the field, and 14 different models. It's a pretty impressive lineup.
A lot of people have been asking to pick a favourite, and I think there's any number of cars, 10 to 12 cars at minimum, that have a chance of winning this motor race. And we've seen that with the Highlands 101s in the previous years. It always comes down very, very close at the end, and it's been no different in Australia this year.
46 drivers and a cracking 101 laps for the Hampton Downs 101 for the first time at Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park.
On board there with Greg Murphy. It's funny hearing him getting talked about coming out of retirement. Joining us, we've got a special guest to start the race with us. Should be sitting in a race car somewhere, but he's obviously not starting. Tony D'Alberto, welcome back to New Zealand. You're not unfamiliar here. You have done laps at Hampton Downs before.
I certainly have, and thank you for having me for the start of the race. Yeah, we picked a little bit of a different strategy, and we're starting Ash Samadi. We didn't qualify quite as good as what we would have hoped, so we're starting back in 14th, so we thought let's take a bit of a punt, get Ash's laps done earlier in the race, and then put me in as soon as we can and see if I can try and make a bit of time up. And if we do the same strategy as everybody else, start the pro, then you're going to basically finish in the same spot. So we're having a bit of a different approach to it, but I'm loving driving this new circuit. It's one of those places that I enjoyed previously, but now this just add a little bit more spark to it. So interesting to see how the safety cars play out, because we've seen a lot of cars spin in practice and get themselves beached. So I reckon this race in particular, we'll see a few more safety cars, and we haven't seen any in the last 2 rounds.
Well, that's the thing about this place and the new addition of the existing improvements of the circuit and the track layout. That new sequence, the part that seems to be carrying, causing the issues is DB1 and DB2, which is the transition off the new part of the circuit to the existing part of the circuit between what was turns 3 and 4, which now become turn 8 up at the high hill hairpin. There's a bit of a crest in the middle of it, and then the surface change. Is that where most have been getting caught out?
Yeah, the trickiest part is entry to turn 4 and 5. That's quite slippery and off camber on the approach. And then, yeah, the double bastard corner, as we call it. I'm not sure
as Tony can only call it.
Turn 6 and 7, you know, you sort of carry a bit of speed in there, and then it goes over a crest, and it's very bumpy on the way through. So now we see the cars lining up for the start of the race. Obviously, double file start, rolling start as well. So now they have to behave themselves and stop weaving and carrying on, line themselves up.
So quickly, before we get to the start-finish line, the safety car rules: you cannot overlap a car in front, but you can a car alongside going to the start-finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get a little bit of momentum on the guy that's beside you, but you can't get the guy in front of you. So it's actually very tricky, because you can see the big wings on the back of the car. When you're tucked up behind, you can't actually see the light.
Yeah, when you're behind the Bentley in the previous championships, that was one of the worst ones to get in behind. We are about to go racing here at Hampton Downs, the Australian Endurance Championship, round 3, a Lamborghini off the pole, Aston Martin from grid position 2, 101 laps about to erupt.
Pretty tidy lineup so far. You can see the Greg Murphy got the eyes on back there in P6, and they're away. The green flag for the Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park 101 down to Pirelli corner for the first time, and the Lamborghini leads.
Well, let's see if we can get this first lap nice and clean. Turn number 1, which can be notorious off the race starts, looks pretty clean as they fan out across the racetrack and start this huge run down to turn 2. One of the biggest brake applications on the new and improved motor racing circuit, as already the Nissan looking to squeeze down the inside of the mid-decky Aston Martin. The gloves are well and truly off in the opening lap.
I think the Mercedes almost checked up there behind the Nissan. It looked like that's the Dominic Story Mercedes, which was very, very quick in qualifying and practice.
Michael Caruso starting the Nissan. David Russell with a bit of a clean break early, sort of keeping out of that stuff in behind him to work off the new part of the circuit. Headlights on for some of those drivers further back.
It's been a pretty clean start there, and David Russell has gapped Mike Caruso. He's been dicing there with George Medicki. These guys are still on relatively cold tyres, so the cars aren't behaving how they would like, and they've got full tanks of juice. So we probably haven't experienced that over the weekend. And you see D-Russ there, he's, the
big twitch there for Story in the AMG Mercedes under brakes, and the brakes will be relatively cool in this early start of the early part of the race. Tyre-wise, you're probably looking for them to come on from maybe lap 4, 5 ultimately?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you set the tyre pressures a bit higher for a qualifying lap, so you want them to come in lap 1 or 2. Just on board now with Greg Murphy. Let's see the difference, the Aston Martin compared to the Audi there.
Yeah, the Astons have been pretty good up the hill, but that's where the Lamborghini's been very, very strong so far this week, Craig.
Yeah, a lot of speed, lacks a little bit of braking and an aero downforce, but very fast in a straight line. And of course, you can see that Caruso has already jumped Medicki, and now Medicki coming under pressure, it looks like, from Mies and Hackett.
Christopher Mies, certainly one of those young drivers to watch, one of the best drivers out of Europe in the GT3 category, and he was one of the stars at the Highlands 101 last year, battling with Shane Van Gisbergen and Jack LeBrock. So things just starting to settle down a little bit now.
Not a bad standing lap time either, folks, 1:33.5, so they weren't mucking around. But as you say, Tony, it generally takes 4 or 5 laps for the Pirelli tyres to come on.
Yeah, they're fantastic tyre, and they're very durable over a stint, but to try and get temperature in the tyre is very difficult, and it's almost like driving on ice those first couple of corners. And we're on board again now with Greg. So this is the corner that everyone's been talking about, very bumpy and quite tricky to pick a line. Christopher Mies just ahead of him there. Christopher's been super fast. We saw him put the fastest time on the board in qualifying. Not quite in the shootout, though.
Yeah, 1:29.8. These cars not ideally suited for a one-lap top 10 shootout, but it was a lot of fun to watch.
It's actually the first time that Mies had done anything like that before. A lot of the V8 guys have done it in supercars, like your Gartanders and guys like that. But for Mies, it was a new experience for him.
2.1 seconds the gap now. And David Russell absolutely flying in this Lamborghini. What's the fuel burn on the Lambo like? I mean, it's a huge V12 engine.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cars that'll probably struggle, and there was talk early from some of the teams that the Lamborghini may have to be a little bit conservative to try and get that fuel window out as long, because we do have the compulsory pit stops ×2 throughout the race, but we also have a pit window that you're not allowed to pit before and pit after for the race as well, Craig.
That's right, yeah. The first of the timed compulsory pit stops, as they call them, is due to start at 30 minutes, and then they must complete the second one before the 2-hour mark of the race.
How long are you sort of looking to leave Ash in the car?
Well, he's got a minimum laps of 46, so all going to plan. He'll do those 46, and then I'll jump in for the next 55. So it will depend on safety cars and things like that, but that is the rough sort of plan. You got to be flexible with your plan. We feel as though if Ash can stay close enough to these guys, because these guys will probably only do 30 minutes of the first stint. They want to still leave plenty of laps for the last run home, and they're basically trying to get the race settled down. Got to move here now, and Garth Tander down the inside. I think Quinn there.
Yeah, Mad Mike Whittett behind the wheel. He actually, I think, started the... it was Clark Quinn, sorry, starting the number 37 McLaren. On board now with Clark Quinn. Hasn't Mad Mike Whittett done a good job this weekend?
Absolutely. I sat behind him in morning warm-up and actually doing quite a good job. His lines are very good. He's nice and tidy. Yeah, I thought he did a good job in the shootout as well. It was quite a hard scenario for him, and yeah, he lived to the last corner. But for somebody that spends their life going sideways and then, now to tell him to be nice and smooth, it's just a different discipline. So very, very good job.
And for those that aren't quite familiar with Mike Whittett, he's a major star in New Zealand, isn't he? I mean, he's
all over the
major
world.
Drifter, finished third in the World Drifting Championship, won the round in Japan, but he's a huge star.
Well, he's gone from a 1,200 horsepower Mazda MX-5 drift car in the US to this, which is around the 600 mark. Nathan Morgan's giving him a bit of a hurry up here. He was on the headlights about half a lap ago, so Mad Mike's got the mirrors full of a sister McLaren. Greg Murphy, Christopher Mees. It's working their way through, so David Russell just holding on to that advantage.
Yeah, he's taken it out to another 0.4 of a second, so the gap almost 3 seconds now over Caruso. Mediki is still running strong back there in third.
See, Caruso and Simmons there, they've actually got one of the longest stop times, so these guys need to absolutely hustle. Got to replay the start now.
Yeah, it was pretty clean, you got to say, and to get that first corner out of the way, and at Hampton Downs, that first corner has claimed many a victim over the years. I don't know if you've had any issues down there in the past with your endurance racing here, Tony?
I haven't, but just on board now, you can see Dom's story there. It was quite lively at the start. Got around, I believe it was the Aston Martin, actually.
Nice and clean. You can see the different lines on that approach down to turn number 1 and that big drop down the hill. And even more important now because it sets up that straight line run and we're at maximum speed. Any idea what sort of the top speed you guys are achieving in these cars? We've heard sort of around 260 kilometre an hour.
Yeah, I believe it's about 260. In the Audi, we're probably a few Ks down. That's not really our strength, but for the Lambo especially, they're the quickest in the straight line. So we're just watching now. Mees putting a lot of pressure on Dom's story. You've got a world-class driver there that races these cars day in, day out, super confident with it. And Dom's doing a great job to stay in front of Mees and also Greg Murphy.
I asked Michael Caruso last night how quick the Nissan was going down the straight, and he said 350 kilometres an hour. I don't think it was being entirely truthful.
In fact, one of the slowest cars is the Porsche. They're struggling for top-end speed. That's the beautiful white Porsche 911 GT3 car you can see on screen now. They don't even get into 5th gear, where pretty much all of the other cars actually get into 6th.
Yeah, well, John Martin and Paddy Archie have done a good job this weekend, and I think arguably that car's spent more time up and down on the jacks with setup changes throughout the weekend with the Walkinshaw team. They've just been searching for balance and grip and trying to get some speed, but they haven't been too far away.
The beauty these guys have is they've got two drivers that are very experienced and very fast. So we saw in qualifying Paddy Archie, he was the quickest AM driver, and also Martin was super quick as well. So he was only about 2/10 faster than Paddy Archie, whereas some of the other combinations, it could be 3 or 4 seconds difference. So, for these guys, it doesn't really matter who starts the race or ends the race. They've still got two really strong drivers to bring it home.
We're going to have updates down on pit lane throughout the event, and we've got Mike Sench down on pit lane. A nice, clean start to the start of this race, Mike.
Yeah, guys, very nice, clean start. All the teams look relatively relaxed at this time of the race. But one thing I've noticed, no green tyres down here for this one. In the past, some of the drivers have opted to put a green tyre on for their last run, but I can't see any green tyres down here at the moment, boys.
Fastest sector time so far, George Mediki, 34.9 in Sector 2 in the Aston Martin. So again, Mediki, who was dropped back 2 spots, in fact dropped back 1 spot off the start-finish line, is now putting in some quick sector times.
We looked at lap speed and sort of looking at lap times for the race. They're in the mid to low, mid sort of 31s at the moment. That's going to be a pretty fast race pace for 101 laps. David Russell's last lap was a 1:31.9. Michael Caruso at a 1:31.6. Caruso's actually best in the first sector with the Nissan GTR 35. So going through the 10, David Russell, Michael Caruso, George Madecki, Dominic Story, Christopher Mees, Greg Murphy, John Martin, then it'll be Marcus Marshall, Garth Tander and Clark Quinn in the Styx McLaren, your top 10 in the early stages of the Hampton Downs 101.
Tander's actually just got around Marshall, so he's probably the mover and shaker at the moment. He started, I think, in 13th, around there, and he's jumped up to, well, he started in 12th, is that right?
Yeah, they were a little bit disappointed with their qualifying speed, but Garth loves driving these cars like you guys do.
Absolutely, especially when you come from V8 Supercar land. Like, they're great cars to drive as well, but these just give you a bit more confidence to really attack. You know, you got traction control, ABS, paddle shift. They're just a cool car to drive.
How much of an opportunity do you get to play with that in the car on the run with the ABS and the traction control adjustments?
Yeah, I mean, for a quali lap, you pretty much almost turn the traction off. You don't want as much interference. ABS, you still definitely keep it on. But, you know, we're used to driving without it, so it's a bit of a different scenario. We don't probably lean on it as much as what someone like Christopher Mees does. I've been lucky enough to drive in that team, so I can see the data and how aggressive he is.
So Michael Caruso's just set the fastest lap of the race at a 1:31.442 in second position, chasing down David Russell.
Nathan Morecambe also putting a lot of pressure on Clark Quinn. Of course, this is a battle for the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship. This is round 3 of the series, and Denyer and Morecambe lead on 200. In fact, it's jumped now to 333 points. Madecki, Andrew and George on 268 points, and Clark Quinn 263, and Peter Hackett 240 points. So you've got probably 4 or 5 teams still well within a chance of wrapping up this championship. So this inter-car battle of 2 McLarens between Morecambe and Quinn, a very, very important one for the series.
I believe there's a driver in one of those cars that is a bit close to you. Is that right?
Well, with the same height. Are you referring to that?
Well, it's funny because we've been calling Craig Grant's older brother throughout the weekend.
Again, Morecambe looking down the inside of the 6 McLaren. What a beautiful car these are. They've got a McLaren engineer here this weekend. He follows this racing program all the way around the world. Morecambe's got a run on him now.
Yeah, makes a nice clean pass, and that's sort of, he's been working on that for a good 3 or 4 laps. He had the headlights on a few laps ago to let him know he was there.
And Richard Moore.
Yeah, Richard Moore in the number 96 Mike Perro Mortgages Aston Martin, the second of the Madecki team cars, run by Matt Stone Racing, taking the opportunity as well. And Richard's done a fair few laps around this place. Very, very good in a Super Tourer.
Absolutely. It's the first time in the Aston Martin this weekend, first time in a GT car, but he is absolutely adapting to it very well and enjoying the car. He just says it's so good to drive. You can drive as hard as you want, and it really sort of rewards you on lap time.
How good's this new BMW M6 of Stephen Richards? We saw it for the first time at Sydney Motorsport Park and Phillip Island. They've struggled a little bit with the development of this car, but with a lot of input from BMW Germany, now starting to come towards the front of the field.
Yeah, they're getting faster and faster. We saw at Phillip Island a little bit of a glimpse of the speed that car has. Stephen did a great job yesterday to qualify very well in his session. And this weekend, they're carrying a little bit of laser plumbing sponsorship, which is great to see as well.
It's a fabulous looking car. I love it when you open the hood on that car and the first thing you see, Craig, are the 2 turbochargers sitting in the middle of the V of the V8.
So we're counting down to the first compulsory time pit stop, which is time to start 30 minutes from the green flag.
We're about 12 minutes into this race. There'll be some different strategies going up and down the field, whether they go basically split it into 3/3, whether they go short, medium, long. And it's going to be interesting to see how those strategies work out a little bit later on in this race, because there is still a long, long way to go with the Hampton Downs 101.
I mean, just glorious conditions here at Hampton Downs. It couldn't be better. The track looks fantastic. A huge crowd here. Tremendous motor racing. David Russell, of course, and Roger Largo continuing to lead in the Lamborghini.
And Tony, just looking at that track, that's continuing to creep up, so it's getting hotter out there. There's a bit of a southerly here, and 33 degrees track temp. And look at this view, looking at the front of that awesome BMW. Personally, I still like the look of the AMG GT3 Merc.
Yeah, but that's beautiful. This is a beautiful car, the Stephen Richards car. Long chat to Richo today, and they're extremely happy with this car. They think it's got enormous potential. We'll talk a little bit later about these cars. This one owned by Dave Evans from Australia, but Tony Longhurst has bought a brand new BMW M6 as well, and plans to run the Bathurst 12 Hour next year with Mark Scaife, Russell Ingall, Longhurst, and a 4th driver yet to be announced.
That's going to be an interesting debrief with Ingle and Scaife together.
I might give him a buzz, actually, if they're still looking for another driver.
Well, I suggested if you want another legend in the car, what about Jim Richards? But Richo said, no, Dad doesn't want to do it.
Then we start getting into that combined age territory, which could be a little bit of fun as well. So Michael Caruso's just come off the best lap at a 1:31.442, and that's pretty impressive pace in these early laps. They'll be full of fuel. Yeah. How much different are these cars to drive with full loads with the aero package as well?
Look, it's just you're just carrying a little bit more weight. The balance of the car doesn't change that much. We haven't seen. We predicted the pace to be around the 31.5 to 32. So yeah, it's pretty much on par there. But these guys won't be ragging it quite as hard because they want to look after those tyres.
Fastest lap of the race. That's the Peter Hackett Dom Story Mercedes, 1:31.43.
Well, every time they lower that mark, it's going to be a new track record for the Hampton Downs layout. And with the new extension, it's added conservatively around sort of 23, 24 seconds to the lap time from what it used to be with the original layout here at Hampton Downs.
So fastest sector time still for Largo Russell in sector 3 is 24.8, and you can see the power again of that Lamborghini through the sweeper and up the hill.
Yeah, we're just on board now with Clark Quinn, looking back at the BMW, and just behind as well is, I believe, actually, I was just going to say Jack Perkins, but he just lost a couple of spots there.
In fact, I think it might be McConville that's behind the BMW.
It's actually Smythe there now.
Driving the car, yeah.
He's just got past a few. I think there's a bit of a kerfuffle there, and just see if we can get a bit of a replay, perhaps. But Jack Perkins, though, he's driving this car for the first time this weekend as well, and of course he drives in the supercars, and he's loving driving this car. Although it's the older Mercedes, he's still having a lot of fun.
Still very, very quick. They actually topped the morning warm-up this morning. They made some changes overnight to that car because they were a little bit disappointed with their qualifying speed. Threw 90 litres at it and actually went quicker than their qualifying mark. So they obviously found some speed with that car.
I mean, it's been a common talk amongst all the drivers there. Throwing new tyres or green tyres at the car doesn't seem to have made too much of a difference.
Yeah, we found that actually on Friday, that you think you're doing a good time on an old tyre and you put a new tyre on, get a second out of it, but you're only finding a couple of tenths, which is quite surprising. A lot of guys actually roaded tyres for qualifying.
Yeah, Garth Tander's just gone quickest at a 1:31.366, so we've seen 4 different cars lowering that margin and resetting that new mark over the last probably 6 or 8 laps, and they're starting to, some big battles starting to sort of get created here through the field. The 88's on a bit of a charge, the Edwards and Smythe Ferrari 458.
Just noticing there, Caruso's closing the gap to Russell, so whether or not it's looking after his tyres a little bit more, or Michael's just getting more comfortable in that car every lap.
Stephen Richards in behind the McLaren as we go on board, looking back at the Ferrari 458. Young Kiwi Graham Smythe at the wheel.
Simple spin on this morning's warm-up for that car. Had a talk to the car owner, Peter Edwards. He's pretty relaxed about this weekend and absolutely loving the track. Ferraris actually came on strong in the warm-up lap this morning. They've kind of been, off the radar for all practice and qualifying, but it appears that they've found the sweet spot with the car. McConville sitting further back at the moment in the car that he's sharing with Adrian Dietz back in P16. But as you say, Smythe is just slowly starting to work his way forward.
Look at the straight line speed of the 458s up the inside of Richards. Smythe's coming on nice and strong. I actually drove with him at Phillip Island, and he was a great teammate. Not as good as my teammate last year, but hey, we had a pretty good result there. So he's a great young steerer, and great to see him back in the category this weekend.
And a good all-round car to drive, I believe, the 458. It pretty much does everything right.
Absolutely. Just having a look at the onboard here. See where the cars are particularly strong.
Still quite physical through that part of the circuit, just watching the onboard work there. There's some good battles forming. David Russell still your race leader with a 1.4 second advantage over Michael Caruso. Back to George Madecki, Dominic Story, Christopher Mies, Garth Tander rounding out your top 6.
Still can't believe we haven't had a safety car just yet. These guys are behaving themselves too much.
Well, lap 12 of 101, it's good to see. Hasn't been a safety car in the first 2 rounds of the championship in Australia, Phillip Island and Cindy Motorsport Park.
Nathan Antunes back there in the black Audi that you can see. Also a fairly well-experienced driver. has done quite a bit of work overseas and come back to share this car this weekend.
Yeah, he's got Greg Taylor, who actually owns that car and has done a lot of Audi racing alongside him. And they were a little bit disappointed yesterday, didn't qualify a bit further up. They had reasonably pacing practice, but didn't quite translate to quali. So got themselves in further down the pack than what they would like. And the thing with the Audi, it's very good cornering-wise and braking, but it lacks a little bit in a straight line. So it's very difficult to get past cars in front of them.
Garth Tander, fastest lap, 1:30.87.
And I would look that to continue to look at that to continue to lower over the next probably 20 minutes as the fuel loads start to lighten out of these cars.
Garth, of course, driving with someone that's relatively unknown to the GT Championship in Australia, and that's Daniel Bilski, who's a Hong Kong banker, who's raced in the Audi series in Hong Kong and won a Pro-Am series over there. First time to drive a 2016 Audi spec car and first time at Hampton Downs in this championship.
Cameron McConville there just behind Antunes. It's a feisty little battle here. It's a pretty impressive time by Garth Tander, 30.8, considering he only did a 30.7 in qualifying. So very, very fast time. And you're into the 13th lap, so the edge of the tyre is definitely gone. They did make a few changes to that car overnight, and it looks like Antunes up the inside there of Richards. Now, that's a really good passing spot because on the approach, you have to take such a wide entry. So if you're brave enough to sneak down the inside like he did, make that pass.
So the first pit stop window, time to start at 30 minutes into this race. And everybody fairly comfortable so far. The first part of the race, safety car free. But David Russell in the Lamborghini has edged his margin down to 0.6 of a second. So Caruso's actually closing quite quickly now on the Lamborghini.
Oh, running wide there was Stephen Richards in the BMW. I wonder if he's maybe just struggling with a little bit of balance. I mean, a little bit early maybe for, well, tired dig, but he seems to be going backwards through the field pretty quickly.
He doesn't look too happy with the car. He's got Jack Perkins trying to round him up on the outsides. I don't know if that's going to pay off, but just looking back now at Smythe, he's definitely on the attack there of Clark Quinn.
Young Kiwi, very good kart sport racer. Didn't have an awful lot of experience with racing cars before he joined Trash Family Motorsport a couple of seasons ago, but he has been very quick as Antunes makes the pass, and he's stuck that one. Oh, that's got
this is messy. Two Ferraris very close to each other.
McConville gets through it.
Smythe did very well to hold on to that because that would have been just about full lock on the recovery.
Yeah, and Antunes dived in pretty hard there, and Smythe did a good job of avoiding contact. And then Cameron McConville got many years of experience, played them both pretty well, and managed to get around Smythe.
So tell us about the ABS and the traction controls and some of the little toys that you've got on these cars that you don't get to play with in your supercar.
Yeah, like I said, it is quite foreign to myself. We've got about 9 different settings of traction and ABS. So depending on your grip level and how much you want it to intrude, you can basically turn it up depending on how much you want the system to work for you. So you don't want it to intrude too much, but you like that safety net of it catching you if you are in strife. And a lot of these gentlemen drivers here that don't drive every day of the week or every weekend in a race car, they like to be able to smash the brake pedal and not actually lock a tyre.
So David Russell with the race lead from Michael Caruso. That gap is about 0.6 of a second. George Madecki, Dominic Story. Tander's just reset that lowest lap again as Jack Perkins runs a little bit wide in the Erebus Mercedes at a 1:30.579 for Garth Tander, who's currently in the 6th position. So he is on the move within 6 seconds of the race leader. On board now with Garth Tander. Mike?
Yeah, guys, bit of an update from down here in the pits. As you say, getting close to that compulsory pit stop window. All the Audi drivers have their helmets on, ready for what looks to be a driver change, and a few other teams heading that way as well.
Well, I know there'll be one Audi not making a driver change because Tony D'Alberto's sitting next to us with his one.
Thanks, Tony. We'll wrap you up. We'll let you go and get ready. We're only kind of 8 minutes away from the opening of the compulsory pit stop window. Thanks a lot and best of luck.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Have fun.
Tony. David Russell leading this race from Michael Caruso and George Madecki. There is the race leader and the headlights are on. Michael Caruso has closed that gap significantly. It was 0.6 of a second at the start of the previous lap, and Caruso is eating into the race leader's lead.
Yeah, I wonder whether there might have been a different tyre pressure strategy that the Lambo team look at Caruso again, gasses up the Nissan out of the corner. What a fantastic opportunity to see a factory-backed Nissan car and a Nismo car we're going to see next year in the Australian GT Championship as well. It'll run Highland Park 101 in 2 weeks' time, but Caruso absolutely on a charge as a factory Nissan driver too.
2 in the field, Clark Proctor and Andrew Porter also racing one, a local pairing. They're a little bit further down the order in the 20th position in a car that's just recently been imported into New Zealand. Russell's got the hurry up. He's just done his best lap at a 1:31.438.
They're trading lap times, these two. 1:31.4 last time around for Largo, 1:31.41 last time around for Caruso. He's got the lights on. He's starting to flash now. So he wants to upset David Russell. But he's a cool, calm, collected customer who's been around a long time. He's raced this car in the Spa 24 hours, raced Lamborghinis for Roger Largo for a long, long time, and he won't be too fussed.
Fantastic looking car, and that's where the advantage is up the hill, and you can see that gap has opened up in the last third and final sector between the Lamborghini and the Michael Caruso driven Nissan.
Caruso, of course, not just a factory driver, but also David Russell has been driving for Kelly Racing in the Pertec Enduro Series in Australia. And a very underrated driver, very experienced, started in production cars of all things in a Proton Satria and won Class E of a production car championship many, many years ago. Surprised he doesn't have a full-time supercar drive, because I really think the guy's had the talent for years and probably just hasn't been given the break.
Well, he's done a fantastic job whenever I've seen him in the GT3 category with AGT with the Highlands 101 going back 3 years now. So we're at 25 minutes, about 5 minutes away from potentially the first of our compulsory pit stops, with the teams choosing to take their first stop fairly early into the run. Battle for the lead continues, and they are stretching out over George Madecki, Dom Story, Christopher Mees and Garth Tander. That second group headed by Madecki is about 4 seconds away from these two on the racetrack.
Yeah, the quick cars are all sort of sitting in the 1:31.5s, 1:31.6s. The Martin Pagliacci car, 1:31.9. The Denya Morecambe car, 1:31.8.
We're inside 4 minutes away from the pit stop window opening. The first of our stoppers, as Mike alluded to, on pit lane. A lot of the Audi guys were suited up, ready to go to take their first stops. And that's where we're going to see some of the different strategies, safety car or not, which some will be waiting for, some maybe not so much, Craig.
Yeah, and I think you'll find the ones that actually have the longer compulsory time pit stops will probably come in as early as they possibly can. You'll probably find that the Morecambe Denya car will run a little bit longer, as it's traditionally run at the last 2 rounds, and generally shakes out pretty well. But Caruso particularly, I would expect to come in fairly soon. I would suggest the Tander car also will come in as quickly as it possibly can. And those cars that obviously are heavy on fuel will probably try and run as long as they can in an effort for the second stop to be as long as it possibly can as well.
And for the majority of those second stop runs with the second driver in, they'll look to go 46 laps to get them cleared. So that is the minimum amount of laps that you're allowed to do. Maximum is 55 over the 101 lap run. Now with the Audi team cars, they're all pitted together. They won't be able to double stack, so the strategy there will be pitting them on different laps, because there is a no double stacking rule in Australian GT.
That's right. In fact, 3 minutes to the opening of the pit window now. But you're right, you can't do the compulsory time pit stop under safety car, and so that can't happen, and you can't double stack as they do in the supercar world. And we saw what happened at the last round at Sydney Motorsport Park when Clark Quinn was due to come in for fuel, and his father had been in 2 laps before, and they had to refill the fuel gantry, the fuel rig, and it overpressurized, and all the fuel came out, and Clark had to do an extra 2 laps while they refueled it again, and actually ran out of petrol on the in-lap. And while it probably cost him 4 or 5 spots, it actually proved that you've really got to watch that fuel window extremely close and hope that you don't have any problems.
Mad Mike Whittett was suited up, ready to get into the Styx McLaren. Lap traffic now comes into the equation. That's Ash Samadi in the Audi. Co-driver Tony D'Alberto's just been with us, so he's headed back to the pit area. We'll be looking to get into the car in probably the next probably 15 or so minutes, depending on what their strategy is. But as you said, they were going to let Ash go out there and go a little bit longer and earlier in the run.
Yeah, I think they were hoping for a safety car that would happen early that would keep Ash. I mean, obviously he's not going to be able to turn the same lap times as his co-driver Tony D'Alberto. So I guess they were hoping that by sending Ash out early, if they get a safety car, it'll at least give him track position back and he won't lose so much. So when Tony does jump in the car, hopefully it's in a decent spot.
Guys just down here in the pits, and as you were saying before, you know, when you get two cars pitted out of the same garage, there isn't really enough space for them out the front. So looking at the Lamborghini and the Nissan, what they've done is they've decided whoever's in front gets to make the call whether they're coming in first or not, and when they come in, the Lamborghini's going to get this one.
And it's not really all that important, I guess, Jamie, when you come to think about it, because the compulsory time pit stops means that they have to sit there a long time anyhow, so they've got to go through that.
So some of the leaders just working their way through some lap traffic. Ash Samadi, the first of those cars to go down a lap to the leaders. They were hoping for a relatively early safety car to maybe try and extend that run. Christopher Mees, Garth Tander, Jamek Pem teammates, and behind Dominic Story. And that battle group stayed pretty static there at the moment, Craig, headed by George Madicki in the Aston.
I think you'll find Madicki also will be one of the early ones in. And also, Martin has been told to come in this lap, so the Porsche that he's sharing with Devarshan Padiashi, as he gets a little bit of a touch up there from Dominic Story, and expect to find the Porsche come in this lap as well.
Yeah, they're getting a hurry up because Christopher Mees has got the lights on as well. He's trying to get a gain here. He's tucked right up underneath the rear wing. Another little wiggle. I don't know that was a touch then, but certainly Dominic Story is hustling the Ortex AMG GT3 Mercedes.
Beautiful car, and one of the cars that looks the most settled on the track. I mean, you can see that it's bumping and oscillating a little bit there, but during the weekend it's been fairly kind on its tyres. It hasn't been quite as stiff as we've seen the Audis being sprung and the McLarens being sprung, so the tyre life on the car should be extremely good.
How close was Garth Tander in behind Christopher Mees? The two Jamek Pem Audis nose to tail in behind Dominic Story. David Russell's cleared out in front. That gap's gone from less than half a second out to 2.5 seconds, the gap between himself and Michael Caruso, and we're at 30 minutes, 25 seconds. The pit window is now open. On board with GT, Garth Tander. Who's going to be the first to blink and take their pit stops?
There we go. You can see that the Aston Martin of George Madicki, the Lubramax car, coming into pit lane now, followed by the Dominic Story Mercedes-Benz. Russell's in, and Roger Largo about to jump out of the car, and he'll go and do probably a stint somewhere for around about 45 or 46 laps.
So the first of our compulsory pit stops, and there are different times that the teams will spend on the pit apron based on their driver seating. A quick explanation of that, Craig?
Yes, there's the driver seating. Of course, this is a Pro-Am series, so you have pro drivers and amateur drivers, and they've come up with a seating scale based on whether you're a Pro 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, or an amateur 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. And they give you then a pit stop time per driver based on that seating. So in the case of Caruso and Simmons, they've got a combined compulsory pit stop time of 145 seconds. So in that time, they can fuel the car, they can change the tyres and change the driver, but they must stay in the pits for 145 seconds stationary. Martin and Padiachi, 139 seconds. Richards and Twigg, 139 seconds. Whereas some of the amateur drivers like Proctor and Porter, they'll stand in the pits for only 76 seconds. Ellingham and Miles, around 70 seconds. And the idea, of course, is after you've had 101 laps of racing, if the handicappers get it right, every car should cross the start-finish line at the same time. Now, we know that doesn't happen because of safety cars, DNFs and so on. But it's worked fantastically. I mean, we had a great race finish at Sydney Motorsport Park, and the same again at Phillip Island.
So the race leader, one of those to pit, Simon Ellingham. To Miles, also pitting the Fastway Courier's Audi R8, run by McElrea Racing out of the Gold Coast in Australia. Expat Kiwi Andy McElrea runs a very, very good setup up there, and they've just wrapped up the Porsche Carrera Cup Championship with Matt Campbell.
And Timmy Miles would have jumped into that car, who is great mates, I believe, with Andy McElrea's father. They used to race Formula 4 together here in New Zealand. And Timmy, a Kiwi now based in Sydney, and basically runs a business broking corporation, if you like, and we're responsible for the sale of V8 supercars to Archer Capital. So he's very much involved in motorsport at pretty much every level.
So the Sticks McLaren on pit lane, and they will take their first pit stop at lap 21, about 33 minutes into the race. Mad Mike Whittett will get in behind the wheel. Clark Quinn out of the sticks McLaren, so it's very, very busy down there on pit lane.
Yeah, different strategies this time. I thought maybe Clark would have run a little bit longer, as he did at Sydney Motorsport Park, where he tried to get the 48 to 50 laps out of the car. And so they've elected to come in pretty much right on the pit window. Same with the Daniel Morcombe McLaren, and also the cars we expected would come in, which of course were the Mediki Aston Martin and the Martin Pagliacci Porsche. Clark Quinn giving some last-minute advice. Very strict rules on pit stops here. You can only have 2 guys working on the car plus a car controller, and you can't refuel and change tyres at the same time. If you're going to refuel, you have to do that first, finish the fueling, then push the car forward, and then basically change the tyres and the driver change at the same time. So very, very strictly controlled. There's Michael Caruso into the pits, about to hand over to Matt Simmons.
Yeah, out of the race lead, came in behind David Russell out of the second position, took over the race lead when the Russell Lamborghini pitted. Great to see these cars on debut in New Zealand and in the Australian GT Championship.
And this guy about to jump in the car now was the winner of the... Oh, we've got an incident here. We've got a Ferrari and we've got the Miles Elegant
I think
Audi.
Tim Miles stayed in the car in that first stint, the Fastway Audi. Definitely some contact there, and that is one of the Ferraris. Is that the 8 or the 88? I think it may be the 88.
So this, no doubt, will probably call a safety car. So,
well, just as, no, it's the 8, it's the McConville car.
Here's a replay.
The Audis look to go up the inside. Yeah, that wasn't going to work. A little bit clumsy, unfortunately, and the Fastway Audi had just come out of the pits.
Again, cold tyres, you see. Bolted on probably cold tyres. Didn't have the braking grip he hoped he had, and unfortunately has tagged McConville.
So Miles is scheduled to stay in that car for this second stint off the first pit stop, but I don't think the number 8 is going to be able to get out of there.
No, you can see that he's spinning up the wheels in the gravel. Call for safety car they have. Now, this is going to be very, very interesting. Who's pitted and who hasn't. But what you have to remember, folks, of course, is you can't pit for your compulsory pit stop under safety car. You can if you want to do something else to the car, but you cannot have one of your timed compulsory pit stops under safety car.
So the race leader, it will be the Garth Tander Bilski number 2 Audi. The safety car will be coming out on the racetrack. Well, we haven't seen a safety car at the first 2 rounds of the Australian Endurance Championship. We're in New Zealand, we've seen one now.
Well, I think the odds on that we were going to see one, and we've had some 200 laps of racing without one, and a much, much tighter track here, so the margin for error is probably a little higher when you've got tight, twisty bits and cars much, much closer together, and we've seen that poor old Timmy Miles has paid the price for that.
Guys might have been a bit of an omen on that number 8 car, and its pit stop, the wheel nut went flying across the pit lane into the wall on the far side, so Ferrari having to scramble there to get another wheel nut put on that car.
So with the safety car out, it is the Greg Murphy, Tony Quinn, Aston Martin that leads this race. Safety car out for the first time today.
This is round 3 of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship from Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park here in New Zealand. It's called the Hampton Downs 101. We're under safety car, and that's the reason why. The McConville Ferrari is bunkered into the sand trap there. The Audi safety car on track now. Lots of cars have come to the pits, including this one, the Andrew and George Mediki Aston Martin. Greg Murphy and Tony Quinn currently being shown as your race leaders.
23 laps into this 101 lap Hampton Downs 101, round 3 of the Australian Endurance Championship. Murph looks pretty relaxed there.
Doesn't he love it? I mean, 44 years of age, and he still looks like a fresh-faced young kid from New Zealand that came to Australia and, had 4 Bathurst 1000 wins and that fantastic qualifying 2:06 lap that we all remember so well.
And he wasn't too shabby in the top 10 shootout either. He gained a lot of time, and Tony actually put him in the car for the top 10 shootout.
So the top 3 at the moment are Quinn and Murphy, Daniel Morcombe, Richards and Twigg. So the BMWs move forward. Griffith, Perkins, Talbot, Foraker, the Proctor Porter car, which probably hasn't come in yet, has jumped into the top 6.
So the safety car on lap 22. The majority have pitted. Those that haven't as yet, Greg Murphy, Nathan Morcombe in the McLaren, Stephen Richards in the BMW currently 3rd, Jack Perkins, John Foraker Clark Proctor and Ash Samadhi, I think, will be the first of those that have not taken their pit stops. That's a lot of gravel coming out from underneath the number 8 Maranello 458 Ferrari. Looks like Tony Quinn's not too far away from getting in. So I wonder how that's affected their strategy, Craig, with them probably about to take a stop.
Yeah, as I said, it's going to be very, very interesting, but you can't stop under safety car, be a compulsory time stop anyhow, so that may well, handicap a lot of those that actually haven't made that decision to come in earlier.
Clark looked pretty relaxed in the back of that shot in the garage. He was having photos with some fans.
A young son rider here this weekend, Ryder Quinn, who I believe was involved in a kart challenge here at Hampton Downs.
Graham Smythe has just got out of the number 88 Maranello 458. He's looking pretty relaxed.
Multiple New Zealand karting champion Graham Smythe drove with Jono Lester for the Truss Family Motorsport Ferrari last year. Unfortunately, that Ferrari has been scratched this weekend, literally, but not that bad.
Unfortunately, they had a suspension failure in qualifying and weren't able to get that car back together. In fact, the rear wing off that car is currently sitting on the number 88 458 Ferrari. Graham Smythe a little off this morning in the warm-up. Just knocked the wing end plate off it against the wall off the exit of turn number 1. So Greg Murphy leading the race. Safety car continues here at Hampton Downs. Lap 25, safety car is still on the racetrack. They have extracted the number 8 McConville Ferrari 458. An unfortunate clash between that car and the number 33 Fastway Couriers Audi R8. Craig Denyer, has this affected potentially, or is it going to be a gain possibly for the likes of Greg Murphy and Tony Quinn, who hadn't taken their stop yet? They were certainly not too far away from doing it. Does this fall into their hands maybe a little bit later? Extending that fuel range more importantly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably too early to call because there are so many things that are likely to happen, in basically the remaining laps of the race. So we're only 24 laps in of a 101 lap race. The Daniel Morecambe car, did that come in?
I don't believe so.
So I thought they must have come in, but clearly they haven't if they're up there in P2 at the
So they've actually, well, I mean, hey, fuel economy at the moment, it's too early. A lot of the teams decided to take that first pit stop as soon as they got to that half-hour window opening.
Yep.
They have to take their second stop now before 2 hours, 120 minutes.
So it looks like we're all set for a restart of the Hampton Downs 101. Tony Quinn and Greg Murphy in that sensational Aston Martin Vantage V12. Glorious car, built by ProDrive in the UK at Banbury. How stunning does it look? It's a mean monster. And it's chased down at the moment by the nimble little McLaren, beautifully balanced little mid-engine car. Richards and Twig in the BMW, and now Quinn and Murphy take their pit stop.
Yeah, we're back racing, and they've taken the opportunity to jump straight back into the pits. So it is the Morecambe Denyer McLaren leading the race. Championship leaders with 2 rounds effectively left to go. I mean, we're 25 laps into the penultimate round, but we've still got the last round of the Endurance Championship to complete in Highlands down in Central Otago in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, Jack Perkins has moved forward too in the Hog's Breath Mercedes SLS that he's sharing with Mark Griffith. It's an older spec car, but it's run effectively by Erebus Racing here this weekend. Griffith didn't have the best of the opening rounds of the series at the Clipsal 500 this year with a number of incidents. And looks like a driver change. Is Tony Quinn getting into the Aston Martin at the moment.
Yeah, just talked to Brett Francis, the engineer on that car, and he wasn't very happy with the way those pit stops panned out. Like he said, everybody just got a free pit stop, and they have definitely lost out of that.
Okay, so we talked about being a positive or a disadvantage. They're obviously pretty aware that it's going to be a disadvantage here at the moment.
Whoa!
Battle for the lead, McLaren versus the BMW. Nathan Morecambe and Stephen Richards going at it, and Jack Perkins is in there in the mix as well.
Yeah, he says, I'll buy into this. So Perkins now moves up into second spot.
These 3 cars have not pitted as yet.
So this is 1, 2, 3 on the road for the Hampton Downs 101. And if you've just joined us, folks, we're at this fabulous new international racing facility. It's about 1 hour south of Auckland and looks absolutely fantastic under a beautiful day.
So another McLaren back at the front. This Perkins maybe looking to pit in the Mercedes, yes. Followed by Stephen Richards, so Perkins in. Nathan Morecambe continues on in the Just Cuts McLaren Championship leader.
Joining us in commentary is George Badicki. You've just stepped out of the car and straight into the commentary box, George, and you're looking pretty refreshed.
He looks better than we do.
You'll have to excuse me if I'm huffing and puffing a bit, but...
it was probably a bigger run here to the commentary position than getting out of the race car.
Yeah, no, it was good to get the race started, and you know, what can you say? Had a reasonable first stint. It was a bit harder work than I probably expected, but we had the car pressured for short runs. We expected a safety car a little bit earlier and sort of caught us out there towards the end of the stint.
And Caruso jumped you off the start?
Yeah, he did a good job. I had him covered, and then I just braked too late, ABS myself, and opened the door nice and wide for him. So he did a great job.
So track conditions today, I mean, you guys have had 2 or 3 days at it now, and the track is obviously coming together. The track temperature is up today, 33 degrees, more rubber down. The Aston Martin is good today as what it was yesterday in qualifying.
You can really feel that rubber down on the track. The car feels like, I feel like I'm going slower and slower and slower, and the lap time gets faster and faster and faster as we're getting into that stint. So obviously the cars are responding to it well. As I said, my car didn't feel that pretty during the last one, but yeah, we'll hopefully push on and we'll be a bit better pressure for the next run.
Well, speaking of Michael Caruso, George, Mike has Caruso down there in the pits after his first stint.
Yeah, absolutely. Down here talking to Michael Caruso, and you pushed fairly hard early on. Obviously, you had to sit in the pits for the longest in the CPS window.
Yeah, look, it's we knew it was going to be an uphill battle, having the longest pit stop out of everybody in the field. So had to get a good start and try to get a bit of a gap on the field. So car feels great. It was just getting faster and faster and faster. So I just told the boys to rev Matty up because he's got a good car underneath him.
So that with that safety car coming out right when you had your compulsory pit stop, that sort of is going to help you because it means that you can catch up to that train.
Yeah, no doubt. It's probably the ideal scenario for us, to be honest. But we've still got one more of those long stops to go, and we'll just see what Matty can do. I'm sure he'll do a great job, though.
All the best, mate.
Thank you.
Well, they've been the biggest winners out of this because they're already back up to P6 after what should have been a 145-second pit stop.
Yeah, I'm a bit bemused. I'm trying to figure that part out because they obviously had quite a lot longer pit stop than us, and when we all came out, we were under safety car, so we were travelling slowly, so they've actually benefited from that, which is a good job for them.
That's a big gain, and that, you know, Michael was certainly pretty aggressive in that first stint. You had a battle group going there with one of the McLarens and Christopher Mees and that behind, and you guys all at pretty similar speed, but just before that pit stop window opened, some of them started getting a little bit more aggressive looking for positions.
Yeah, definitely, and honestly, I was losing pace compared to them, so I was sort of the cork in the bottle, as you would, and poor Dom Story was behind me. He was getting pressured by Mees, and Mees can pressure people with the best of them. It looked to me, was that Tander at the back of the that pack?
Yes, yeah,
Tander
was behind Mees.
Yeah. So obviously Tander right behind Mees. Mees started to pressure Dom. Dom started to pressure me. Even gave me a little hello in the.
Yeah, we thought there was a little touch there. Craig called it.
But luckily, obviously, with a 6-litre V12 and plenty of air, I was all right.
It's renamed. It's now called a Trump. It's called a touch-up.
Yeah, no, it was a good battle to be a part of, but really I was mirror driving for most of that stint because I was really I didn't feel like confident in the car, you know, I felt like I was under pressure.
All right, so we've got Nathan Morecambe, your race leader, from Clark Proctor in the second to the Nissan's Ash Samadi in third. Those are the only 3 cars that have not taken their first compulsory pit stop. Now, talking to the McLaren team, my understanding with the Techno team and Nathan and Grant Denyer, they were talking about trying to basically split it into thirds with their stints.
That's what they've done in the previous 2 rounds, yeah. So whether the safety car is going to kind of change that strategy, but that's basically what they did. Nathan and Grant pretty even on lap time, so it's a good package to try and get the first stint out. Hand over, Grant kind of does a double stint in the middle, and then Nathan jumps back in for the finish.
Well, didn't it do a great job for them at Phillip Island? You know, they sort of just really worked the strategy to perfection, came out of nowhere, and absolutely did a perfect job of it. I think, like you say, the safety car may well throw a little kink in the mix there, but it's been a strategy that's worked for them in the first 2 rounds so far.
On board there with Daniel Bilski in the 5th place Jamek Pem Audi number 2, driven in the first stint by Garth Tander, and we've got Greg Murphy down in the pits.
Greg, that pit stop strategy didn't quite work for you, mate. You came out on the wrong side of it. How's the car generally?
That wasn't our strategy. Strategy wasn't for the safety car to come out when it did. So obviously the other car pitted first, and you can't have 2 cars in the pits, and you can't put under safety car. So, well, you know, timing, bad timing. Cars, yeah, it's sort of on a long run. It's really hurting its rear tyre for some reason, and the balance has gone from what we've had during practice. So it's just a bit of a handful trying to keep the rear. The first sector's really good, middle sector's really bad, and the third sector's not too bad. So it's just through the middle, through the long new section, we're just losing a massive amount of time there. We just can't get on the throttle, and it's just struggling. So that's the way it is.
So is that, doesn't matter if it's a full tank or a half tank, it's still got that problem with the rear?
Yeah, as it started to burn off and we started to get low on fuel, it was still taking to, I had to manage it, and we were losing a lot of time there. So as I say, the first and last sectors aren't too bad, but the middle's really killing us big time. It's just where the car's so loaded up for such a long period of time, and it's not gripping. So we're using up our tyre. It seems a little bit too much.
All right, mate, we'll see how it pans out. Thanks, mate. Cheers.
See, race control just called a pit lane penalty for the Tim Miles Simon Ellingham Audi. Car 33, no doubt, that incident with Cam McConville.
Yeah, I think that was pretty easy to read on that one. That wouldn't have been too much of a difficult call to make. It was just a little bit clumsy, unfortunately. There is Tony Quinn in the RJ's Licorice Aston Martin Vantage V12. Arguably one of the best sounding cars in the field. George, you can't dispute that.
No, not arguably at all. I might be a bit biased though.
So we've got Nathan Morecambe as your race leader from Clark, Proctor, Ash Samadi. Those three cars have not taken their pit stops yet. Then it's the Nissan of Simmons and Caruso, 4th place overall. So the number 7, Tony Quinn, Greg Murphy, Aston Martin out of that exchange with the pit stops down in 17th, and that has been pretty expensive, Craig, in that run. As we've got some battle groups going through the field. We've got the Padiachi Martin Porsche there, and the Smythe Edwards Ferrari in a battle group. They are in around that sort of 9th and 10th position.
Yeah, Martin Padiachi back there in P10. I was just having a look at the Proctor Porter Nissan on screen too. It's up there in P2 with the New Zealand boys, their first drive in the Nissan GDR.
Yeah, that'll be a bit of an eye-opener for them. I mean, you know, Clark Proctor, very good in Targa. He races Formula 5000s. Biggest problem he's been struggling with the car is the braking ability, or lack of ability, he was saying, because he's so much longer than, you know, some of the guns like the young George here. And Andrew Porter, well, he's just stepped out of an 1,800 horsepower super truck with absolutely no aero, so it's going to be a totally different experience for him.
Yeah, we caught them in that stint, and it looked like he was struggling with the brakes a little bit. Oh, you got Largo up the inside.
That'll be Bilski in the 2, Roger Largo side by side out of the sweeper. It's going to be a drag race up the hill.
God, Roger's driving well, isn't he?
He is. They've done an awesome job all weekend, and we sort of keep alluding to the fact that it is one of the older cars in the field, but it is still stunningly quick.
Yeah, and the level of the amateurs in this category is just getting higher and higher and higher, and you're seeing that gap just diminish. You know, these guys are doing an awesome job.
And I think one of the key things to that, and that was highlighted to me today by Troy Russell, who runs the Audi cars here, is that Audi have actually built a car that's easy for gentlemen drivers to drive, because they believe to win races in Pro-Am, you've got to make the car good to drive on behalf of the amateur. So they put a lot of work into the 2016 spec R8 simply to make it a good car to drive for the gentleman drivers, and they love it. And all the gentleman drivers that have jumped into the 2016 car, like Daniel Bilski, who's driving with Garth Tander, say it's a far easier car to drive and to get the tyres out of.
And then there's other cars, obviously, like the McLaren, which, you know, has a reputation for being a very, very sharp tool for a skilled driver, someone who really can rag the car and drag the lap time out of it, but not so friendly for the amateur drivers as much as, you know, some of the other cars.
Nathan Morecambe continues to lead in the Just Cuts McLaren 650S.
Yeah, they're definitely going a lot longer into this first run. 32.8 was the last lap, so good consistent pace. Just sort of dropped off the fastest lap of the race set by Garth Tanner in that first stint at a 1:30.579. Your strategy, George, you're sitting there shaking your head. What sort of lap times were you guys looking to aim for as part of your strategy?
Well, that's fast. I mean, I was you know, driving as fast as I could and running in those sort of mid to low 31s. But yeah, I think just go as fast as you can for as long as you can.
Here is the race leader on lap number 33 of the Hampton Downs 101. We're just on third race distance, and I would expect a pit stop is probably not too far away for this car, Craig.
Yeah, they won't have to worry about fuel. Fuel's not an issue with the car. It's really where they play the strategy game, I guess. But Nathan's very experienced. He's racing the DAC Masters Cup in Germany, been around for a long time. He's raced Porsche. He won the 6-hour production car race at Mount Panorama earlier this year with Chaz Mostert in a BMW. So he'll push as hard as he possibly can, and the car certainly won't have any issues.
Problems here for Greg Taylor on pit lane.
Yeah, guys, the number 5 Audi came in complaining of a steering problem. The mechanics have found something on the left front of the car, so they're going to take it in the garage. We'll just follow this for a minute and see what we can see, and it's obviously a bit of a problem for them.
So the Caruso Simmons Nissan, with Matt Simmons behind the wheel, is now moved up to P5 in car 35. And what a dream life that fella's had, Matt Simmons. We haven't told the viewers about Matt Simmons and how he got the drive, the GT Academy drive run by Nissan.
Very good at playing PlayStation, basically. How cool a program was that with Nissan and PlayStation? Jan Mardenborough was one of the first. He's raced here in New Zealand. He's gone on to race with the GT3 Nissans in Europe and Formula 3 and some of those other classes. Matt Simmons, they've just announced the latest driver as part of that program. How cool is that? How's that to go motor racing?
I mean, imagine this. A year ago, Matt is sitting... Oh, we've got Hackett up the inside of Dad. Well done, Pete. But, come on, Dad, get a bit of a move on. Look, a year ago, Simmons is sitting on the couch watching this sort of stuff. Loves it, can't do it. So he plays his PlayStation. He plays it so much that he's obviously very, very good at it. Goes away, wins a competition. A year later, he is co-driving Michael Caruso in a factory Nissan GTR in one of the most picturesque locations in the world, and he's signed up to do the Australian GT Series next year. So what a story.
J.K. Rowling couldn't have written a better script for that. That battle for that position there's for 5th and 6th, and I don't know that I've ever heard "Come on, Dad" ever mentioned in a commentary. Mind you, Craig's sitting there about to go probably get the hurry up son when Grant gets in the number 59 race leading McLaren.
Yeah, look, I let that one slip out, didn't I? But no, he's doing a good job. He's doing a good job. These next 2 cars behind him are obviously the young pros. So one of the things is that AMAC started the car, and Brad Shields is in that older model Porsche now, and obviously with Duvashin in the other one, they're a couple of quick young guys. So he'll be doing well to hold his own here, and that's what I'm hoping he'll do.
His times have been pretty good all weekend. I mean, he was quite good in his own qualifying session.
Yeah, he really pulled it out at the end of the qualifying session.
I think he was top 3 of if you want to call the lower ranked drivers. He was 3rd fastest of all of them.
Yeah, did an excellent job, and while we're probably not struggling as much as the Murphy and Quinn combination, I think the car's probably not quite where we would have liked it to be for the long race today.
Well, the track's the hottest that it's been in the last 3 days, so that may be affected. Could even be something as simple as tyre pressures with the number 7 Aston Martin. Now the McPherson Shields number 51, that's not for position. They are actually down in 20th. They'll be a lap down on the race leaders, so that is not for position. Currently it's Morecambe, Samadhi, that they have not stopped. The Simmons, Nissan, Roger Largo, Peter Hackett, Andrew Madecki, Paddy Bilski, Bates and Edwards, your top 10, and we are on lap number 35 of 101. Just under the hour mark into this race, so in the next 24 minutes the second stops have to be done for all of these race teams.
The fuel burn for the Aston Martin about 2.3 litres per lap, George. I mean, are you guys driving to a fuel number? Has Dad had to change the map in the car to kind of lean it out a tad to get to the next window?
Yeah, just quietly. I was being a bit cagey with you about that before the race. We're using a bit more than that, unfortunately. But honestly, we are fuel limited. The safety car would have helped us there. We would have gone into full fuel save during that. He began his stint in map 3, which runs the same car with the same throttle reaction, but a little bit leaner. So he will be saving fuel throughout this stint. Hopefully, if the numbers stack up, he'll be able to come back down to map 1 and really give it the berries.
Grant Denye's about to get in this race car. He had the helmet on, getting ready to jump inside the Just Cuts McLaren.
You getting nervous, Dad?
No, look, I've been watching him for so many years now. I said, well, why can't we do a Maniki and, father and son McLaren team? Why don't you give me the keys to the McLaren? And he just said, Dad, I've seen the way you drive. You really should just continue to drink.
So this car about to pit out of the race lead. Number 3, Ash Samadhi, Tony D'Alberto car likewise is not pitted. In third is the Simmons Caruso Nissan. Just looking at the lap speed, Morgan's been very, very consistent. He's just smack bang in the middle of the 132.5s, 132.6s. And they've got some speed up their sleeves with that car, so I wonder if they're maybe not trying to save a little bit of fuel on this run towards the end of it as well.
He came and shared the Aston with me in Japan, and tell you what, good credit to him. What a driver! By the end of the weekend, we were separated by about a tenth or so, and it's a credit to his class. He's someone who just works away at it and really, doesn't push himself too hard too early. But by the end, by gosh, he's really moving.
Oh, there's a bit of a moment there as the Proctor Porter Nissan just moved aside to let the McLaren through and actually looked like they ran off track going up the hill. So this is the race leader into the pits, the championship leader, Nathan Morecambe, about to hand over to Grant Denyer in the Just Cuts McLaren.
No doubt you'll be watching this one, George, because you guys are very much in the championship hunt too. Third on points, so a good round this weekend will pretty much take you up to these guys.
Yeah, that's the idea. We just quietly plug away, and the biggest thing for us is not to get too caught up in that, not to put too much pressure on yourself. We've got.
Konduras is off in the Superbarn Audi. I assume it's Konduras behind the wheel. This is the car he's sharing with Marcus Marshall.
They have definitely pitted, so it should be Theo behind the wheel. Just a little bit off the line, and Ash Samadi and Theo, Audi versus Audi. And that'll be a flat right rear by the looks of it too for the Superbarn Audi. We'll definitely have to make an extra pit stop. Here's the driver change, Grant Denyer, Nathan Morecambe.
Now their compulsory pit stop time is 121 seconds. So again, two drivers that are rated as pros, Pro 2 and a Pro 4. I think that's how it is. So they basically have individual driver times that are added to the compulsory time of 55 seconds.
Now, I believe fuel has to go in separately. You're not allowed to do the tyres at the same time as the fuel delivery.
Yeah, you do have to separate those two, and the big thing is with any of the pit stops, there's actually more than enough time to do those two if the crew are obviously onto it. What they would be thinking is, with that safety car early on, if I'm in for a penny, I'm in for a pound. I'm going to do this whole stint as long as I can, so that's why we've seen them stretch it out and get that clear air as much as they can.
Stephen Giles, Kiwi, engineering that car this weekend for Techno out of the Gold Coast. Very experienced mechanic and engineer. Was with Mika Hakkinen in his World Championship with McLaren. Came back to New Zealand, runs a very, very successful business, running various Toyota Racing Series cars here in New Zealand, and for the last 2 seasons has engineered Simon Evans to 2 touring car championships, so a man of many talents.
They've also brought out an engineer from McLaren this weekend, James Dorner. So he basically follows all these cars around the various championships in the world and
just about
overseas, and sends all the data back to McLaren after every session.
Just about to say we may have been seeing another safety car there, but they've got that car back up and running. Definitely a flat right rear tyre, so they'll be heading on to pit lane very, very shortly. So everybody is pitted except the number 3 of Ash Samadi, with Tony D'Alberto due to get in that car. So they are the race leaders, and the safety car has been called. That's interesting, because we saw that car getting underway. It had definitely stopped again. So a second safety car will have to come out of the racetrack.
I think it was called just as he got out the gravel.
Well, George hasn't leapt up to get out of here to get back in it, so probably just a touch early.
Yeah, we definitely run that long middle stint. Dad needs to do that amount of time to clear him for his minimum amount. But like you say, with a bit of that Kiwi flavour, obviously with our team, with Mediki Stone Motorsport, we've got Jimmy's son Matt, who runs the team, and from an operations point of view, makes sure the cars operate well. And we've actually only got 3 Aussies on the team, and they're all drivers: myself, Dad, and Tony Longhurst. So everyone else on the team, apart from Luigi, our pro engineer from ProDrive, is a Kiwi, which is pretty cool.
These cars are built in the UK by the Dave Richards ProDrive organisation. That looks very stiff in the rear end, George. It's kind of bumping around there. Is it just a bump in the track, or is the car set up a little harder than what you'd like?
Yeah, it definitely is a bump in the track. You've got to thread the needle coming off that first slow hairpin. There's like a magic line that you can hit, and all the bumps go under the car, and that's what we do in a race line. But obviously Dad's getting a bit lazy rolling around, and you see the thing jumping around. But all these cars are stiff. They all roll over the place, and if you hit these bumps right, they're hard work.
So the Marshall Conjuris Audi is on pit lane. Safety car is out.
Yeah, guys, just a bit of
leads.
Yeah, just a bit of an update down here at Audi. They've got their hands full on 2 different cars. It seems that Greg Taylor has come into contact with someone on the left front, and they have bent a tyre on him. The team feverishly trying to fix that at the moment as the Marshall Conjuris car leaves the pits.
So the safety car back out for the second time on lap 37. And they'd already made the call. Obviously, the 4 car had stopped for long enough that race control made the call for the safety car to be dispatched. And my understanding, as soon as that call is made, it's pretty hard to rescind. So that'll put the Simmons Caruso Nissan back into the race lead. Samadi D'Alberto, well, they can't take their pit stop on the safety car. So, you know, they're going pretty long. Well, Ash should probably go to lap 46 anyway, so they wouldn't be looking at taking the stop anyway. So they are leading, Samadi and D'Alberto in the number 3 Audi.
So the Audi safety car now, no doubt, trying to pick up the race winner, or the race leader at this stage.
Now, from the Styx McLaren, from the Aston Martin point of view with Tony Quinn, Greg Murphy, this is certainly going to help them with this safety car not too far after, you know, the first one and their pit stop. They were down in 17th. They're back up to 14th, but this is going to close the gap up because they were a long way back after that stop.
Yeah, it really helps the Daniel Moore combination too. You know, it looked for all the world like they were going to just pay for that that missing the first safety car. But this came out after they were already in the pits. They get their CPS done and look at them right back in the mix. And obviously a bit further back than they'd probably like to, but it's a heck of a lot better than what they were staring down the barrel of earlier.
Yeah, well, they're in the 8th position after their pit stop. So just 1 car yet to take their first pit stop, and that is the number 3 that the Audi safety car has picked up. The field will compress back up and we'll get underway on lap 39 of 101. Beautiful sunny conditions, and that track temperature continues to climb. It just touched 34 degrees a couple of minutes ago, so it's getting hotter and hotter out there this afternoon.
Been a while since we've seen Ash Samadi lead an Australian GT Championship race, I would have thought. How would he be feeling at the moment?
I think the nerves would be going there. He's been spending a lot of time in these cars. Obviously, he was racing an SLS prior to getting the Audi, and I think he's really settling into that whole MPC operation. I mean, when you talk about if you were going to be a gentleman driver jumping in these cars, if you're going to have one operation look after you, one that's got 6 or 7 cars and all of the driver coaching tools and all of that, you know, to go along with it is, you know, be a pretty smart bet.
The DeVeth Chester Camaro in behind them. They're outside of the top 20. New Zealand combination, one of the Writer Engineering Camaros.
And what a wild-looking car that is.
Sorry, actually, they're 12th overall. What am I saying? 12th overall for the number 123 Alpha Oils Camaro. They are just a sledgehammer of a car. Lap 40, the safety car is out on track. Our second safety car of the afternoon for the Hampton Downs 101. And this will help a few of those, Craig, that were handicapped from the first safety car and not being able to take their pit stop.
Yeah, there's no question about that. This will play into the hands of a number of teams, as we mentioned before. The D'Alberto car, they've still got to take their compulsory time pit stop, so it probably won't help them. Simmons and Caruso back in P2 at the moment. Largo and Russell, the Lamborghini that led the race early, is still very comfortable too in P3 at the moment, in the Hackett Story BMW 4. What I love about this category, George, is just the variety of manufacturers and the fact that they've got mid-engine, front-engine cars, they've got mid-engine, rear-engine cars, they've got V12s, V10s, you know, boxer engines, BMW V8s. It's just fantastic, and the balance of performance to get them all so competitive just works so well.
Well, it's interesting when you're in the car and you're in one of the battle packs and you've got the Nissan in front of you, the Lamborghini in front of that, you've got a Merc behind you and an Audi behind that. You can really see where each car makes its speed, and as across the middle of the lap, you know, you could see the Merc catch up to me. Then we go through the fast stuff. My car's got the legs, you know, really gets a move on through that sort of thing. And it's really cool to be able to see that sort of back and forth, that give and take, which we haven't been able to see in touring car racing for a few years, because obviously we've had a lot of cars that are very, very close together in the way they make their speed.
Yeah, different weights across the cars as well. The lights are out on the safety car. Different weights sort of varying between 12 and sort of mid 1,300 kilo mark, and different restrictors for air intakes and things like that, just to balance torque and horsepower. But a lot of these cars, as you said, George, are better in different places and on different circuits as well, as we're about to go back racing here, and it's the Samadi number 3 Audi that will lead them away.
Yeah, you can tell Ash hasn't done a safety car restart for a while. He's a little bit awkward there. He was carrying a bit too much speed behind the safety car, so we'll see a bit of hustle and bustle here for the first lap or so, because everyone's sort of a bit out of sorts.
GT Championship rules call for obviously a single file restart and no overlapping. So Samadi and Alberto in the Audi continue to lead, car 3.
This is going to get busy off this restart because there's a lot of cars out of sequence here in the queue. The number 6 Squirk Audi looking to go down the inside of Samadi there.
Tell you what, Simmons is making hay. This kid is doing a great job after the restart. Since he's got in the car, he's been very confident in traffic. He's been making big moves, and it's showing because you can see him right at the top there, and with quite a few cars between himself and Largo in third.
On board here with Tony Quinn. Will Simmons experience this year in the Blancpain GT Series, and that's a very, very tough series to have to contest.
And he started his career as a postman, would you believe, in Queensland. So there you are. Tells you how good the little postie bikes are. You can start a whole career and then end up playing real PlayStation.
Tony Quinn there trying to get by the 4, the Okonduris. Moving through the order, currently in the 14th position, but as I said, a lot of these cars are off sequence. With the safety car coming out in pit stops, the Camaro runs a little bit wide into the dirty stuff down through the Porsche Dipper.
Tell you what, that thing's so loud you can hear it when you're from inside of your car as you're driving along. You pull up next to it and it's just got this big guttural row. You know, it's really, really, really cool to see. And obviously not so pretty in the corners, but a lovely car in a straight line.
So the number 3 Audi is your race leader. Then it's the Simmons, Caruso, Nissan, Largo, Russell in third, Hackett, Story fourth. And some of them have got a little bit of traffic to play with to get them back into the head of the queue.
Yeah, I think Dad's actually losing a bit of track position here. We've just been caught out and wrong-footed on a couple of those occasions, but no doubt he'll get his head down and try and push on from here.
Just saw the Largo Russell Lambo got wrapped up too by the Martin Pagliacci Porsche, so they've jumped into the top 4 now. And Denyer and Morecambe now back into the top 6. So you're right, that safety car played well into their hands.
Oh, look at the different lines down through there. That is very, very busy for a lot of these front-running cars.
I tell you what, Paddy actually wants a piece of Peter Hackett. I can tell you that right now. The way he was looking on the way into the hairpin there and pulling up alongside on the way out of it, he's definitely hungry for a few spots right now.
On board with Max Twigg behind the wheel. The Laser BMW M6 twin-turbo 4.4-litre V8. Oh. That was awkward, and that was actually the Styx McLaren launching up the inside.
So that'll be Mike Widdett.
Mike Widdett. He is more than holding his own here.
Driving with Clark Quinn.
Yeah, Paddy actually's got Peter Hackett there, so that's a change for position up near the front.
Yeah, that'll be fourth. It's still the number 3. They'll be looking to go to lap number 46 in the number 3 Audi before Ash hands over to Tony D'Alberto, who will complete the rest of the race in that car.
Pagliacci showed some good form this year too, George. I mean, he was 7th outright in Carrera Cup. He's still going to university, studying business and finance for the family company, but very relaxed about his motor racing. He finished 3rd in the British Formula 3 Championship a number of years ago.
Well, he's a humble guy, but you know what? At the same time, he's shown how much he gels with this track. He topped that first qualifying session here by quite a bit, and you know, all of us sort of in the pit lane, we looked around, looked at the TV screen, and went, "What? That guy is moving!" So he did a really, really good job, and obviously, you know, being paired up with John Martin, who's no slouch, they're a really threatening combo.
Very, very well-spoken young man too, with one of the hardest names to say in motorsport, as Ash Smarty comes down onto pit lane on lap 43 for that car.
Yeah, with Pagliacci, the whole family are lovely. You know, they all come to the racetrack and they're so respectful and they're so happy to be there, and they absolutely love every part of it. And that's one thing about GT racing as well, is it is a family affair. It's great fun.
That looks like a drive-through for the number 3.
Well, that would have been as a result of the incident.
The Antunes, Taylor number 5, actually rejoining in behind them. I was about to say, Craig, they're 3 laps early than their minimum for the pit stop, so that's really hurt Ash Samadi. D'Alberto will get into that car very, very shortly.
So 42 laps down of this 101-lap race here at Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park. It's round 3 of the Camps Australian Endurance Championship. We had the first round at Phillip Island, the second round at Sydney Motorsport Park, round 3 here and round 4 at Highlands Park in 2 weeks' time, November 12 to 14.
Just watching the shots there, the Simmons Caruso Nissan, George, you picked it up. Just dropped a couple of spots. Yeah. The Martin Pagliacci Porsche now leads from the Hackett Story Mercedes, Largo Russell in the Lamborghini. So I'm just wondering if the number 35 Nismo Nissan GTRs had a little issue on that last lap. Just look at the lap times they come across the line. Well, 135 versus 133, so it may have had a little moment. Maybe you get together with another one of the cars,
Maybe
but certainly lost a little bit of time. Yeah.
Michael Caruso has been quicker than Matty Simmons in the car in the earlier sessions today, so he might be taking a lap or two to come to grips with the car. Again, the Denya Morecambe car leading down the inside of the Camaro, back there in P4.
Dad making a nice move, putting the...
the Camaro goes around, and that was just about in front of Dad. George has just had kittens sitting here alongside me. That would have had the eyes wide open. The Camaro's got it wrong, and really awkward spot with a lot of traffic around.
I think he did it all himself too, didn't he? I don't think he got tagged by anybody, but we'll no doubt be able to clarify that with you.
Yeah, he's been pretty courteous in traffic, actually.
Now he's got it fired up again.
I've got to say, you know, there's some guys that make it easy for you and some guys that make it...
Is the replay?
No.
He's got an assist from Matt Simmons.
Oh, will that have damaged the steering? That was a seriously dangerous spot.
The left front was locked up. He was on the grass, but the left front was locked up on the car before it rejoined. So that'll be the time loss that you picked up, George. You want a job in commentary, mate?
So Matty Simmons.
Yeah, that's damaged the left front, guys. That thing is in real trouble. I'll be surprised if they can continue with that. I saw you see the car sort of hop and make a bit of smoke. It's looking dangerous to me.
It did look like that wheel was locked. I know it was on the grass, so they may have an issue going there with the number 35 Nissan. So Paddy Archie, your race leader from Hackett, Largo, Denya. Yeah, Simmons starting to drop down the order, and hopefully Michael has some latest updates down on pit lane.
Yeah, absolutely. Down here with the championship leaders at the moment. Nathan, you ran a different strategy than most of the other teams.
Yeah, we definitely did. Wasn't too our strategy. We just stayed out a bit longer, and then the safety car actually caught us out of surprise. And then when it came release, instead of coming straight into the pits like Murphy did, we figured let's push on, let's try and claw back some time that we lost behind the safety car, because all the other front leaders ended up getting onto the trail of it. But we just kept pushing on, and we were a couple of seconds a lap quicker than everybody else out there, so we actually gained back a fair bit. Went as long as I could in my stint, and then came in, handed over to Grant, and it's pretty lucky that we got the safety.
Mike, we're going to interrupt here because the Caruso Simmons Nissan left front is locked up, damage sustained after that clash with the DeVeth Chester Camaro, and this is game changing.
You picked it well, George. A lot of damage to the front end of the Nissan.
What a shame. I mean, those guys are doing such a good job, and obviously from a competitive standpoint, you know, it's a car we're in front of, but tell you what, my heart goes out to them. Both Mick and Matty Simmons have been doing an excellent job all weekend, and to be hung up on a back marker, you can't tell whose fault it was, and it's not our job to chase that either. But to be out of the race, it's a real shame. I mean, looking at that, there's no coming back from that unless they're coming back 20, 30, 40 laps down.
Nismo's first entry into the Australian Endurance Championship. First entree into this category before a two-car factory-backed entry into the series next year. Michael Caruso still standing by to see whether he's going to be the lead drivers next year. This very car finished second in the Bathurst 12 Hour, not the car that won the course back in 2014.
Well, it's going straight in the garage. It's going straight in the garage. Dramas for the Nissan team after a clash with the number 123 Alfoils Camaro, and they are getting pushed into the garage on lap number 46.
Yeah, guys, looking at this Nissan, the brake rotor is in a lot of pieces inside that wheel, so it's been a very, very heavy impact.
I think the main reason for going into the pits is more of the team members can work on the car in the garage. So Mike just alluding to a shattered brake rotor, so it was a big hit.
Yeah, it must have been, and those guys obviously very skilled. The team, you see a lot of people with Nismo jackets and walking around that car, and they're the best equipped to handle it. So real shame to see those guys out, and haven't they sent a warning shot across the Australian GT field? We all thought that thing would be a bit ungainly around here. We weren't sure it was going to be fast, but by gosh, that thing was a rocket at the start of the race.
It's funny you say that, because Roger Largo and David Russell said the same thing about the Lamborghini. Yeah, no, it is sad to see, and it's great to have them as part of the championship. Great to have this style of car in New Zealand for the first time as well. they can look forward to heading down to Highlands Motorsport Park, because if they haven't been there, that's definitely going to open your eyes up. For you last year, George, for a different reason.
Yes, that's right. I mean, Highlands would suit this car more so than here.
Well, Highlands is certainly smoother. It's, you know, it really favoured the. I feel it quite favoured the Aston. We didn't have it quite figured out to start with, but sorry, I'll leave it to you guys.
I just got a bumper sitting there on the racetrack, I think, from the Camaro.
Pit lane drive-through for car 35. I mean, I don't think they'll go out again, but the race control have just called it.
So obviously it was a bit of youthful exuberance on the part of Matt Simmons, but
it's unfortunate for Matt there.
You know, again, his level of experience, for him to be running the way he did at the start of that stint, you know, you got to learn those lessons. I've been there. I've hung the car up on people, and you know, and not really done the right thing by a lot of people in the past. But it all really gets you that experience to be able to be a more polished racing driver in the future.
So this is Paddy Archie now. They've dropped back to second, so it's actually the Hackett Story Mercedes that's in the race lead. And for the Sticks McLaren team, they've just been put down a lap.
They were warning us about this car before the race. They were saying the reason it didn't go in the shootout was because it looks after its tyres. It looks after its tyres, and you know what? Here we see it. Pete's really bringing his A game to this weekend, and obviously a fair bit closer to Dom than he was at the last round, and it's starting to show. And for him to pass Paddy Archie and all those guys, and you know, he's doing a really good job.
Well, he's just done a 132.1, so he's a full second quicker than Paddy Archie on that last lap. Very, very experienced driver is Peter Hackett, Craig.
You've got two very experienced drivers, both in the Pro classification, Pro 3 and Pro 4. So Dominic Story, we saw, was very, very fast in the earlier section of the race, and a great driver to put in to finish it too.
So change for the lead. It is the Mercedes now leading the race.
Yeah, Hackett's come from behind Dad and probably Bilski and all the way to the front. Excellent job.
Beautiful sunny conditions here at Hampton Downs, lap 48 of 101. And we have a new race leader here at Hampton Downs. The Ortex AMG GT3 Mercedes is now leading, having just got a pass on the Martin Paddy Archie Porsche. George Madiki, you guys were you're aware of this car before the race weekend, because it does have some very, very strong points.
Yeah, we were, and all the way through practice, you could see it ride those bumps. You watch this car, it's so composed, so smooth, and when they didn't quite impress everyone as we expected them to in the shootout, they were all, I spoke with the guys afterwards. I spoke with Chris Papadopoulos, who's the engineer, and Dom and Pete, and they were all like, yeah, the thing's just too nice on its tyres. And my eyes went wide. I was like, oh no, this is going to be rough. So Pete's obviously doing a very good job. Dom was incredibly fast at the start of the race. I was really holding him up. And let's not forget, Pete started this stint back in 6th, 7th, and he's gone right the way to the front.
So here's a replay of an incident a little bit earlier. And so this is the Paddy Archie Porsche. Oh, that was awkward with Tony Quinn. And that's where the lead change happened. That was just awkward. What happened there off the exit of the Porsche Dipper? There's a front-on shot. So the McLaren out wide, trying to get out of the way. Yeah, that was just an awkward one, that one.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to make room for the guys behind. He was trying to be too nice, and it makes you unpredictable sometimes. The best thing to do is be predictable. Stay on the racing line. If you're going to leave some room, leave it a little bit wide, but you know, he'll learn from that and move on.
Bear in mind, it's his first ever race meeting, so while he's a great drifting star, he's never actually raced a GT3 car before. So you've got to really give him a lot of credibility for coming out here. I was just listening on the comms, and they basically said when the Martin Porsche was closing on the Widette car, to let him go, guys. Let him pass, don't race him. Keep in your own comfort zone.
So they're leaving that rear bumper out on the racetrack, obviously. They've deemed it to not be in a dangerous position. I mean, it is, you know, relatively lightweight plastic or composite, so it hasn't brought out the safety car again. So at the moment, it is Peter Hackett in the race lead from Paddy Archie, Largo in the Lamborghini Gardenia in the McLaren, Andrew Madeki in 5th, Bilski 6th in the first of the Jamek Pem Audis, and then it's Tony Bates in the second number 1 Jamek Pem Audi.
Now, I may be biased, but I tell you what, Moore and Longhurst in 8th, never seen a GT3 car before Friday, got no laps. They're doing an awesome job.
Yeah, guys, down here with the Nissan, and they have confirmed that car is out. I watched poor Matt Simmons sit in the car. The visor came down, he climbed out and disappeared out the back. Obviously very, very disappointed in what's happened.
What a shame.
Yeah, disappointment for the youngster, and they've been such a strong package right throughout this weekend. It has been great to have them here, and we'll look forward to seeing them down at Highlands for the 101 in a couple of weeks' time.
So this is the top 5 of the Hampton Downs 101. Hackett, Story lead in the Mercedes, from Martin Pediacci in the Porsche, Largo, Russell in the Lamborghini, Daniel Morecambe in the McLaren, I should say, the Badikis in the Aston Martin, and then Bilski doing a good job in P6 in the Tanda Audi.
Yeah, George is pretty happy about that, as the number 1 Jamek Pem Audi's just had to clear the Proctor, Porter, Nissan over the backside of the circuit. How difficult it is on the new part of the track from turn 2 onwards to the rejoin to the old part of the circuit. If you get parked up behind someone, there's not really too many passing opportunities, George.
You cannot do anything. And the biggest thing is turns 4 and 5, the swampy curves they call it, that they're so fast, is that in these cars, the closer you get, it might sound silly, but they're very much like an F1 car in that when you're right up behind someone, they actually pick up a lot of aero push. The whole front of the car comes up off the ground because it doesn't have that air sort of compressing it onto the ground. And it's basically impossible to follow anyone closely through 4 and 5. And that was absolutely my saving grace when I had Dom Story behind me in the first stint.
Looking at the lap times too, the Hackett Story car, 132.2 last time around. Martin Pediacci, 132.8. I mean, you may well be right. Everybody else is back in the 33s, 34s and 35s. So good pace.
Yeah, that's
from the Mercedes and the Porsche.
Those two are dangerous. They've obviously got quite long pit stops because of the relative credentials of their drivers. But you know what? They've got the pace to back it up, and they're really doing a good job to stretch that out and really do a good job there.
Here's another replay. Looking back, this is looking off the back of the BMW. Roger Largo in the Lamborghini. He's had a launch up the inside. Oh, and contact, and around goes the BMW. I was just about to say that Largo had lost a couple of seconds on the previous lap. I would say that's probably the reason why. And it might be interesting listening to race control after that wee incident.
He's in P3 at the moment, and of course that was the pole car, the Largo Russell Lamborghini.
I know, if I know Dave Russell at all, which I do, he'll be in the pit lane with his hair in his hands going, oh, because he knows that was a pretty edgy move. I mean, obviously we'll leave it up to race control, but I'd be expecting a PLP from that one.
It looked like he came from a fair way back from that shot off the back of the Richards.
And just got to his bumper. I mean, it's just unfortunately, he would have been trying to avoid it. We've been hard on the ABS trying to stop the car, but there's only so much these electronic systems can do, and just unfortunately tagged the back of the M6.
We talked about how these European cars have actually taken the world by storm as a racing category. A lot of international drivers we've seen come out this year and race in both the GT Sprint Championship and the GT Endurance Championship. And a lot of international engineers out here this weekend. You mentioned Chris Papadopoulos, who's an Australian, but he spent 8 years in Formula One and was the guy responsible for designing all the pneumatics and hydraulics in the Red Bull Renault engine. So vast amount of experience is here working from pit lane this weekend.
Well, it just shows you how seriously all these teams are taking this category. You know, we've got all these guys from McLaren engineers, the Nismo guys are out here. We've got Luigi from ProDrive. If you were going to say who is the most senior engineer at ProDrive, it is Luigi. So we're all taking it really, really seriously, trying to get the nth degree out of these cars because it's just becoming so competitive. I mean, you see Hackett and Story now in the 31s. Holy cow.
Stevie Richards looking on as we were just on board there with Max Twigg. Stevie doesn't look entirely happy there.
He's just started to get that thing going too. He's really done a good job working with that program all year. Obviously a factory-supported program with BMW, and Maxi's been doing a great job in getting faster and faster as well. And we're seeing Steve closer to the front of the pack in qualifying, and you know, it's just a shame to be taken out like that.
Well, it's dropped them down to 15th overall. They were, you know, pretty consistently inside the top 10 in the first stages of the race. Spectacular-looking race car. Still Peter Hackett out in front, and he's starting to extend that lead. He's got a good 3 to 4 tenths on Dusan Padiacci in the Porsche at the moment. Out to 3 seconds now as we start lap number 53.
Done 2 31.9s in a row. Padiacci right behind him on a 32.0. These guys are really, really pushing at the front, trying to open that gap.
Mike Sench down on pit lane. Understand you have a somewhat disappointed Matthew Simmons.
Yeah, look, Matt Simmons, talk us through your view of that incident.
Yeah, well, it's really unfortunate. We come into turn 2 and with the McLaren in front of me and the Camaro's missed his braking mark by the looks of it and just got quite long and hot. So McLaren's gone through, and I've kind of had to go through because he was so far out. And as we come through the corner, I was willing to give him back to turn 3 if he had stayed out, but unfortunately he's come straight back across the nose, back on the inside of the corner, going the exit. So we made contact to the front, and it looks like it's unfortunately retired the car, which is the last thing we obviously want to do on debut. So.
Yeah, look, and it's obviously a disappointment, but man, what a strong debut for this car.
Yeah, so a lot of positives to take away from this weekend. It was strong straight out of the box, and we've absolutely had a blast, being at Hampton Downs with all the fans in here. We have to thank them. They've been great. They've been loving the GDR in Oz GT, so the atmosphere has been amazing, and yeah, we've had such a good time, and the guys have learned so much, so yeah, bring on Highlands.
Yeah, well, we really look forward to seeing you at Highlands, mate. All the best.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Just ticked over half race distance, 53 laps down to the Hampton Downs 101. Beautiful sunny day at the Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park. It's been relaunched, rebranded, resurfaced, re-extended, and about $25 million of Tony Quinn's money has been poured into this fantastic facility to give New Zealand a great international track.
Mark Griffith with a wee moment there down off the Porsche Dipper in the Hog's Breath Erebus Motorsport Mercedes. Just dropped the wheel off and ran it a little bit wide. Peter Hackett, your race leader from Padiachi, Largo, Denya, Medeki, Bilski, Bates, Longhurst. And George, Richard Moore and Tony Longhurst have done an outstanding job. Richard Moore had never driven an aero-type car like this before. He does a lot of driver training here in New Zealand. He's been a race winner in Super Tourers, but he and Longhurst have done a very, very good job.
Well, I was going to say, everyone focuses on the Longhurst side. He's obviously announced his M6 program for Bathurst. He's got a couple of the old dogs that he's joining forces with, and it's really cool that he's chosen us to get a bit more experience. But I tell you who's impressed me is that Richard Moore. He doesn't try and force it. He works up to it. But then we put him out in qualifying. It was basically the first uninterrupted laps he'd done all weekend, and he did 4 31.0s in a row, and that's less than 8/10 off me, off my best bonsai lap I could possibly work up, and I've been driving these things for a long time, so I tell you what, give that kid a chance. More laps in these cars, he is going to be a front runner.
No pressure, he's got a mirror full of BMW at the moment, but yeah, Richard has done a very good job. Moment there for Twig. That was a fairly significant moment, because look at the ground he's lost to the Aston Martin just out of that little issue there. Oh, the McPherson 51 Porsche goes around, was just a little bit wide on entry and into the marbles.
Brad Shields at the wheel of that. I would have imagined he actually had a dive up the inside of Maxi that corner before, and that would have been where that awkward contact came from.
Through the Porsche Dipper, a young fellow, 23 years of age, comes from Bathurst in New South Wales, Australia. A replay.
Well, that was a little bit earlier on.
Yeah.
And it sort of continued on here.
He had no chance there. You get out in that dirty stuff, you're a passenger after that. It's a real shame.
Well, George, I think we probably need to get you back to the pit area. The knees are starting to twitch, and your feet are moving up and down. Hey, thanks very much for being with us, and good luck for the rest of the race. You're in P5 at the moment.
Yeah.
P6 as we say that. Bilski's just gone past Dad.
Yeah, and looks like Tony Bates is ready to have a crack at him as well. Obviously, the car's not quite to Dad's liking, but you know what? I'm lucky enough to be able to jump back in this thing, and long afternoon ahead, and I'll do the best job I can.
As Brocky said, give it a red hot go, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Black flag for car 23 for a driving infringement. So that's the Roger Largo Lamborghini, currently in 3rd spot.
Wow, another one of those cars that was at the top of the charts throughout the weekend. So they will be getting a drive-through penalty. The Largo Russell currently position 3. Again, not for the first time today. Another game changer.
Yeah, and a car that was on pole position. Roger Largo coming back for a massive crash he had at Townsville last year in the Carrera Cup Series, where he broke his leg, broke his ribs, punctured his lung, and took quite a long time to get over it. And they had to cancel an attempt at the Spa 24-hour race in the Lamborghini because of that. But he's fit this weekend and fairly relaxed about the pace of the car and David back there in P3. But the black flag may well change his demeanour fairly quickly.
Okay, here's another one of the different strategies. So the Talbot 4-acre Squirk Audi is in pit lane, and that is on lap 56. Lap 56. So that's the first of the second stops effectively out of the way.
Bearing in mind, you can't have your second stop until the 1:20 mark.
And here's a race leader, Peter Hackett in the All-Tex number 63 Mercedes. Great having George Madiki in here.
He's so good, George.
He's a nice young man.
He's very relaxed. He's got a new baby, a little girl called Eva. He's very relaxed about life. He's now moved to Port Macquarie and working in his father's car dealership along with his brother Harry. So Andrew can spend more time setting up this fantastic Aston Martin team, 2 GT3 cars and potentially a GT4 car at Bathurst next year.
Yes, they are looking at getting an Aston Martin GT4 spec car in. So Hackett, 3 seconds is the race lead. Lap 56, lap 57 now of 1:01. So we're past the halfway mark. Lots going on the racetrack. Conditions continue to improve. Track temps just dropped a little bit down to 32.6, so it's lost a little bit of track temp. We should see another cycle of pit stops not too far away for some of these teams.
Just looking at the body language of that Autex Mercedes-Benz, it just looks so settled on the track, Jamie, doesn't it? I mean, it doesn't move around, it doesn't jump up and down, it just does everything so nice, power down, out of the corners, beautiful. Hackett doing a tremendous job, reading the traffic well. And you can just see how the car's looking after its tyres because it's just so smooth. They've got it set up beautifully. He's driving beautifully down the inside of the Antunes Audi at the moment. That's a Greg Taylor, Nathan Antunes car. But he's doing a tremendous job. He runs the AMG drivers program for Mercedes-Benz in Southeast Asia and also Australasia, as we see the Proctor Porter Nissan come into pit lane.
Yeah, big experience for these guys, and both have raced a lot of different machines over the years, but nothing quite like the GTR Nissan.
2013 spec car. It's got 2013 aero on it, but all 2016 running gear. They bought it in Japan. It was actually on display, so they brought it in Japan, brought it back to Hampton Downs and racing it for the first time this weekend.
Peter Hackett still leading the race from Padiachi.
Hampton Downs 101 for the first time here at this newly resurfaced and re-extended track. And don't forget the Highland Park 101 coming up in 2 weeks' time in November 12-14. So the final round of the championship, the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship, and a championship battle at the moment between Denyer and Morecambe, Madiki, Hackett and Quinn, and also Martin and Padiaccio in the white Porsche that's on screen at the moment, still very much in the mix for the Australian Endurance Championship. Car that's being run by Adrian Burgess, who of course has headed up the Walkinshaw Racing Holden Racing team for so many years, and pretty happy about this program. They're looking forward to running at least 2 cars next year, maybe 3 cars if they can possibly find the drivers to do so. Getting an enormous amount of support for this car out of Porsche. It's a brand new GT3 car, runs a 4-litre engine, non-turbo, 6-speed gearbox, and of course the famous Porsche rear-engine boxer engine.
So just looking at the math, the equation for the second pit stop. So Dominic Story pitted on lap 20 to hand over to Peter Hackett. Hackett has to do a minimum of 46 laps. So you would expect that car to be in on or about lap 66, lap 67, around that sort of territory. So that is about 9 or 10 laps time, because most of the first stops were taken on about lap 20 through 21, 22 and 23. So we'll get about a 3-lap window there where most of the drivers took their first stop. So pit lane will get pretty busy in about 10 laps time. Tony D'Alberto at the wheel now of the Ash Samadi number 3. They've been a little bit in the wars, drive-through penalty for that car before their first compulsory pit stop, which certainly didn't help the equation. But D'Alberto will have the eyes on. He'll be having some fun out there.
Down in the inside of Max Twigg, so D'Alberto, the Twig Richards BMW. D'Alberto very, very fast as the BMW fights back. He's not going to give it to him easily.
Yeah, the number 3 Audi's got a little bit of damage to the left front corner. A little bit of loose bodywork, maybe one of the gurney flaps, not where it's supposed to be after that contact earlier on.
Oh, getting tight now. And pretty experienced driver, D'Alberto, pretty underrated. And I think this year he's driven particularly well for the Team Penske DJR team.
Back on board with Max Twigg. He's chasing down the number 6 Squirk Audi of Liam Talbot. Now, they're the first of the cars to take their 2 stops. That Audi moving around under brakes into turn number 1.
Again, you can see how easy the car is to drive. I mean, Tony's not doing anything wrong. The car looks nice and settled, nice and stable under brakes, stable as it comes off the corners. Lacks a little bit of top-end power, about 250 k's, a little bit better. They touch down the back straight, and also
a little touch
there between the BMW and the Audi.
Liam Talbot and Max Twigg A little bit of contact. That was off the second turn, Foster's hairpin. And back over the bootlet underneath the rear wing. The laser, BMW. Tony D'Alberto storming back through the field. Drive-through penalty for Ash Samadi before their compulsory pit stop. They're currently scored in the 15th position, and D'Alberto's certainly got the eyes on. He's cutting some pretty quick laps here.
Race control concerned about a little bit of debris off the Camaro that's still sitting on the track, but at this stage there's no plans, I don't think, to call a safety car.
As the Liam Talbot Squirk Audi down the inside of the McPherson Shields number 51 Porsche GT3R. So the number 6, first of the cars to take 2 stops. They are currently in the 14th position. Just ahead of them will be Mark Griffith, Jack Perkins in the Mercedes. The Richards Twig BMW running in around that 12th position. Still Peter Hackett leading from Paddy Archie. The gap's out to 5 seconds, so Hackett is extending that race lead.
Look at the race times too. I mean, Jamie, 1:32 flat last time around for that car. A 1:32.2 for the Martin Paddy-Archie car. Denyer a 1:33. Bilski a 1:33. He's done good too. He's doing pretty well in the Garth Tander car.
So we're expecting the first of our next round of pit stops around lap, I'd say 66. 46 lap driver minimum. Dominic Story pitted on lap 20. You'd expect him to get back into the car around lap 66. That's about 7 laps away, so we're not too far away from the next round of pit stops and the second set of compulsory pit stops. Now, it'll be interesting here, Craig, to have a quick look at. Let's look at the difference between the Hackett Story machine and the Martin Paddy-Archie Porsche as to how long they are stationary on pit lane with their compulsory pit stops.
Okay, so the Hackett Story, 130 seconds, and the Paddy-Archie Porsche got the second, well, in fact, they're both the same, 139 seconds. So you'll get that because the Pro 2 and Pro 4 seeding of Martin and Paddy-Archie. And so that's basically where they sit.
And then in third place is this car, the number 59, Just Cuts McLaren, Grant Denyer. There is second place. Now, it looks to me Peter Hackett is trying to get his head down and get some clean laps and put some more distance, because if they've got the same compulsory pit stop time, that battle on track will be dependent on how much ground Hackett can make up ahead of the Paddy-Archie Porsche.
Yeah, I've actually got to correct myself. It's 1:30 seconds for the Hackett Story Mercedes-Benz, 1:39.
Okay, so well, that's
Porsche.
a gain. That's a gain for the number 63 on track and with the compulsory pit stop. So that comes into the equation. Then you've got the Denyer Morecambe McLaren in third. They're currently about 25 seconds out of the race lead. And some of that's been to do with the safety car.
And they're on a 1:21-second compulsory time pit
stop.
stop.
So they get a 10-second gain. So they take a little bit of that out of it. So these pit stops are going to be very, very important. And looking at Hackett's last time was a 1:31.9. So he's definitely flying out there as we go back on board with Daniel Bilski in the number 2 Jamek Penn Audi R8. Paired with Garth Tander. They're in position 4.
Steve McLaughlin was to drive this car this weekend. He's the team owner for the Jamin Peng Audi cars, but is racing at Phillip Island in a State Series car down there, a 2013 Audi spec car. So he's got a chance for a trophy down at Phillip Island this weekend. So we thought he'd jump that one instead of coming down to Hampton Downs. And has given the drive to Daniel Bilski, who's doing a tremendous job. P4, his last time around at 1:32.5. Never driven the 2016 spec Audi before. Based in Hong Kong, he's a banker. Raced in a Pro-Am series in the Asian GT Championship and won that for Audi last year.
Well, they've just lost the 4th position to the Bates Mees at number 1. So Peter Hackett is your race leader, extending that race lead, although Paddy-Archie's just got the hurry up. Here's a replay. This is on board with Bilski. And that's the reason for the position change, I would expect.
No, I was just giving him a big rap and gave him the curse of the black jelly bean instead.
Turn 2 at the Foster's hairpin. That looked to be where he rotated the number 2 Jamek Penn. So there's the number 1 car.
1:31.84.
That's a personal best for Paddy-Archie. So I would say Adrian Burgess has got on the radio and gone, the machine, you need to get the hurry up. Pete's trying to extend that gap with this next round of pit stops to come. We need to close that gap. It's static now at 5 seconds.
61 laps down at this Hampton Downs 101. Hackett Story lead, Martin Paddy-Archie second, Denyer Morecambe third, Bates and Mees, with Mees of course the...
and we've got the Richards, Twig BMW in the kitty litter. And this is approximately 4 laps before, I reckon, our next round of pit stops.
I think you're absolutely
Shields
right.
Porsche down the inside.
Oh.
And that seemed to be the story of the day so far. That particular section of the racetrack has caught a lot out with people trying to sneak up the inside. And I don't know that that will come back out of the gravel. And that's the second time that that car has had contact, Max Twigg, at the wheel.
Very experienced too, has done GT racing for many, many years. GT3 Challenge in Porsche and Carrera Cup in Porsche. And he'd be very, very disappointed to put the BMW M6 in the kitty little like that.
So he's going to have to wait for the recovery team, and more than likely it's going to bring the safety car out again. And as I said, Craig, this is about 4 laps before I would have... well, these guys are going to have to start pitting because, as I said, the first car's pitted on lap 20, including Madeki, Story and Mies, McConville and Russell, and they're going to have to get their second driver in before lap 66, because that's that 46 lap run minimum.
That's right, yep. Yeah, and the cars that'll do the 46 easy without any sort of having to lean off a fuel
the minimum.
Yeah.
It may drag it out a little bit, so no one driver's allowed to do more than 55.
Correct, that's right.
Safety car definitely has been dispatched here. Our third safety car of the afternoon.
But 46 laps is where about the fuel minimum is, and any more than that, and you've pretty much got to go into a fairly lean mode. And again, some of the thirstier cars will have to go into a fuel-saving mode earlier than that if they try and run that distance.
So with the safety car out on the racetrack, Peter Hackett leads from Duvashine Patiachi, Grant Denyer in third in the Just Cuts McLaren. So you might find, Craig, some of these guys may be going to go a touch longer depending on the fuel in the race cars. They would have been looking at a minimum 46 lap run to get, you know, acknowledged quicker driver, second driver back in the car that started the race. But this will close the field up. So this is going to be a gain for the likes of the Quinn Aston and the Quinn McLaren. They're currently back in 10th and 11th. This will give them an opportunity too to clear that rear bumper off the racetrack.
About 5 laps short of the pit window, the radio comms are suggesting, and I think just picked up Tony Longhurst. He might have some transmission issues with the Aston Martin, but they've said push on Tony and try and make it back to the or as long as you can.
All right, we'll keep an ear out on that.
Tough weekend for Tony, pretty tough week for all of us really when you heard about what happened at Dreamworld during the week. And of course the Longhurst family very much involved in the building development and running the Dreamworld entity for so many years, all created by Tony's father John. In fact, Tony worked there for many, many years, selling fairy floss when he was at school. But the Longhurst family very touched, as we all were when we heard about that terrible news at Dreamworld this week.
We'll go through the top 10 for you. Peter Hackett, Dominic Story in the race lead in the number 63. That gap will have shortened now between them and the 911 of Martin and Patiachi. On this safety car, Denyer, Morecambe in third, Bates and Mies in the first of the Jamek PM Audis in fourth, Madeki in the number 95 Aston Martin P5, Bilski Tanda 6, Largo Russell 7. And I would assume that they have taken their drive-through penalty that they were assessed with. 8th, Moore and Longhurst in the number 96 Aston Martin, 10th, 88 Edwards and Smythe, and 10th, Clark Quinn and Mad Mike Widdett in the Styx McLaren.
Just looking at the fuel burn rates, the Aston Martin about 47 laps is the maximum, the Audi about 52, the McLaren about 55, the Lamborghini 46. So it's right on the cusp of the fuel burn range to try and get the last 46 laps out without going into fuel save mode.
Well, that safety car certainly would have helped a few of them if they were a little bit tight on fuel. As you've said, though, I don't think the McLarens are too much of an issue. I think they're one of the biggest fuel capacities in the field, around 130 litres.
Yeah, they're a good all-round car too. 130 litres exactly for the McLaren, whereas the Aston Martin runs 105, the Audi 120, the Lamborghini 105, the Nissan 130 litres. The Ferrari's got the smallest tank of all, 114 litres, but it's very fuel efficient.
So Max Twigg back out on track in the laser BMW M6. They've had a troubled afternoon with a couple of incidents, not of their own making necessarily. Stephen Richards will be looking even less happy in the pit bunker here at Hampton Downs.
I think he'd be pretty happy with the pace of the car, though. I mean, they've come a long way for the first 2 rounds, so I think they'd be encouraged by certainly the development over the last couple of rounds that's come out of the car.
third safety car of the afternoon out on track, lap 66 of 1:01. This will close the field up now. The interesting thing for the lineup here, Craig, will be where they are positioned with lap traffic in amongst them. So the Padiachi Porsche is not too far away behind the Mercedes. Here's another look, a replay at the incident. This is Brad Shields down the inside of Max Twig.
I don't think Max thought he was there at all. I mean, he turned around the outside of him and clearly misjudged, I think, the turn-in point. Perhaps he thought he was further up the road than he should have been.
I think that was at 4 and 5, the start of the swampy curves, which does narrow up off the exit, and understandably Max Twig not very happy.
No, very frustrated.
So off this restart, going back through the top cars, the Hackett Story Mercedes leading this race. Their second pit stop will not be too far away. The window basically will be, for them, would have opened about now, but they cannot take their second stop. Minimum driver, 46 laps. Dominic Story got out of the car on lap 20. So they're at their driver minimum now, but they can't take that stop on the safety car. Likewise, the Medeckis, Christopher Mees, Cam McConville, the Largo Russell Lamborghini, they were the first cars to pit on that lap 20 mark.
So Hackett Story, the Mercedes AMG GT3 car leading, qualified 8th and finished first, qualified 8th, 15th and finished 3rd at the first round of the Endurance Championship at Phillip Island, qualified 6th and finished 4th at Sydney Motorsport Park, P6. So they've been working their way forward, and I think Peter coming into this round thinks, I've got the car set up pretty much where we believe it needs to be. Easy on tyres, nice to drive, and they're a fantastic car. Lights are out on the safety car, so we should get a restart this time around.
It'll be a lap 67 restart, so who will blink first and take the opportunity to pit? It's all going to be about track position, no double stacking. The second pit stop's about to come up, and the A drivers not too far away from getting back into these race cars. Certainly in the next 2 to 3 laps, they can run them a little bit longer. No one's allowed to go more than 55 laps as one of the drivers in the race car.
That's correct. If you're a pro-rated driver, that's it. If you're an amateur driver, or you keep with another amateur driver, you can do up to 70% of the race. Green flag, back under racing to Hampton Downs 101 here at Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park. And Mercedes leads from the Porsche of Martin Padiachi, the McLaren of Denyer and Morecambe, and then you've got Bates and Bees in the Audi.
Yeah, the Porter, Proctor, Nissan, the meat and the sandwich there in that battle for the top 2. Denyer and Morecambe, Bates, Mees, Medecky, and Medecky next in the queue, but there's a fair amount of lap traffic for some of those a little bit further back in the field. Brad Shields, Porsche trying to sneak up the inside of the Porter, Proctor, Nissan, and we've got some problems there, and it's the number 7. RJ's not alone.
Medecky as well, and car number 1, the Bates Mees, the reigning GT champion. 3 of them involved.
Jamming Pem number 1, that's Tony Bates in the car. Andrew Medecky. The damage to the left front, left side.
Dear.
That is definitely going to bring out another safety car. That car will not go back to pit lane under its own power.
Tony Quinn trying to get back to pit lane.
So Tony Quinn was part of that as well in the RJ's Aston. 2 Aston Martins involved.
Now this will be another safety car because clearly, Andrew might be able to get back to pit lane.
Well, there's basically no tyre left on the left rear. It's actually popped it off the bead and is on the inside of the rim.
They're telling him to try and limp it back to pit lane. Christopher Mees' car.
Left rear, yeah. Tony Bates at the
behind the wheel.
And these cars were not too far away from their second stint. That's heartbreak for the Medeckis. Last start winners at round 2 of the championship.
Yeah, this is very, very. Look, the rear tyre's completely torn off the car.
Yeah, it's pushed it onto the inside of the rim. Here is a replay. This is on board. Daniel Bilski.
Big lock up.
Yeah, it looked like, I think Bates is locked up first, then into Medecky. And whether TQ was ahead of that and actually...
so Tony D'Alberto was involved in that as well.
He threaded the needle. So there was a lot of evasion going on there. So there's Quinn. And I wonder if he didn't... I think he was ahead of the Medecky car. So with those cars skating around, whether he's just got an assist in front of it.
So safety car again here at Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park. And again, we're probably still a couple of laps shy of what will be the ultimate run to the flag for the compulsory time pit stops. And of course, again, folks, you can't pit under safety car. You can if you want to do repairs, but you can't do your compulsory time pit stop under safety car.
So the teams that pitted on lap 20 have about an 8-lap window right now to clear that driver change. With 55 lap maximum, that would take them to lap 75 for those cars that pitted on lap 20.
Gee, you got a feel for Andrew and George Mediki running third in the Camps Australian Endurance Championship. Coming into this round, Andrew still trying to drive the car. 60 out, and it's been towed by the, I couldn't quite see the truck in front of it pulling off the track.
This is on board with Tony Quinn. So yeah, he was ahead of that. And I think Bates is just locked up. He's slid into those in front of him. Possibly launched the Medeki Aston into the Tony Quinn Aston Martin.
68 years of age, Andrew Medeki had a massive crash at Pukekohe, broke his legs back in 1974.
Mike, understand you've got one of the Medeki boys down there.
George, just watching the replay on the TV, it's definitely not what you want to see, mate.
No, it's not. I haven't seen the replay, don't know how it started, how it ended, but obviously the main thing is Dad's okay. Shocking day for us. Didn't quite have the speed we wanted, but at least we were going to be in that sort of top 5 towards the end of the race. I don't know what to tell you, mate. I just put my helmet on. I was getting ready to jump in the car. I was all keyed up, but it's racing sometimes, isn't it?
It is, mate, and good luck for Highlands.
Yeah, cheers.
And Mike, down on pit lane, it's going to get busy there shortly because probably most of the teams were pretty much suited up to get back in the car for their second stint.
Yeah, absolutely. All the drivers were ready. And as George said, he only just put his helmet on. He was ready, waiting for the car. The crew had the tyres out. Everything was ready to go. And everybody started looking at the TVs when you boys announced that problem.
Yeah, unfortunate for that team. As Tony Bates limps back onto pit lane.
And Tony Quinn also coming back, trying to pick up if there's any damage to the Aston Martin that Tony's driving and sharing with Greg Murphy. Now that they qualified very, very well, and Tony was running pretty consistently at the time, but he's now dropping down the timesheets quite quickly.
Yeah, Tony Quinn on pit lane. The RJ's Licorice Aston Martin. Possible issue with the left rear after that contact. The team will have a look at it. Definitely going to do tyres. Just hearing the call, possibly just a rubbing tyre. It's been a pretty tough day for the RJ's team as well. Safety car still out there. Peter Hackett leads from Padiachi. Denya, Largo, Russell back up into 4. Damage to the right rear of the car with that contact. I just thought the left-hand side of the car was sitting down a little bit on the low side.
Yeah, it was hard to pick it, and we'll try and have a look at the replay sequence and see what happens now.
So this is on board with Bilski. So the Bates Audi's locked up, cannoned into the Medeki Aston, and that's continued up the hill.
And that's turned Tony Quinn around.
And got Tony. And Tony might have been in his mirrors trying to get out of the way.
I'd say so, yeah.
Couldn't do an awful lot about it.
Yeah.
A couple of those in between, they did a good job of threading the needle. Bilski was one of those we were on board with at the start of that. Because there was a fair amount of traffic because it wasn't too far off the back of that restart from the previous safety car. And what do they say?
Safety cars breed safety cars. Hackett and Story continue to lead. Martin Padiachi, Denya Malcolm in the McLaren. Largo and Russell have fought back very, very well from that earlier drive-through penalty. Moore, Longhurst, and Bilski, Tander, Edwards and Smyre, the first of the Ferraris. In fact, they're doing a pretty good job inside the top 8.
Safety car lights are out. Of course, for Tony Quinn, they could not take their compulsory pit stop, so that'll be an additional pit stop for them, dropping them down the order with that rubbing right rear tyre. So we're going to go back to a restart here on lap number 69. So a lot of these drivers are going to have to get out of these cars before lap 75. So you would expect in the next couple of laps, the leaders especially, to come in and get their second compulsory pit stop out of the way and put their second driver back in the car that started the race.
Back under green, the Mercedes SLS AMG GT3. Beautiful looking car, leading the Porsche of Johnny Barton and Devarshan Padiachi. Then we've got a McLaren. Again, so many different makes and models and manufacturers in this championship, and also competitive. The BMW of Stephen Richards and Max Twigg, of course, coming back from that earlier off.
For Craig, though, he's got about 8 lap cars between himself as Padiachi's launched up the inside of Hackett for the race lead. As the number 37 pits, that'll be Mad Mike Whittett out, Clark Quinn in. Mad Mike's done an outstanding job on debut, but Clark Quinn's just shaking his hand.
He has done a great job. I mean, we only threw him one little mistake at the weekend where he turned the car around. Maybe he thought it was a drifter and he could line up the McLaren, but it just spun out of the corner instead. But he's done a very, very good job. Remember, folks, this is his first ever serious motor race. Former world champion, or in fact a winner of the World Championship drifting round.
Here's a replay. This is the pass for the lead. Oh, he did it on the dirty side of the track as well. Duvasheen Padiachi, just before he's about to hand back over to John Martin. The AMG Mercedes team have a little bit of time up their sleeve to play with, but I don't know that Peter Hackett necessarily expected that.
We can see the Red Bull drifter out of the car now. Mike Widdett. Or Widdett, how do you pronounce it, Jamie? What's the
Mike Widdett.
Yep, Mike Widdett.
Just go the Kiwi way. Widdett doesn't sort of fit really well. Just Mad Mike. Everyone knows him. The world knows him as Mad Mike. Here is the Mercedes heading onto pit lane. The Porsche is in as well, first and second.
Okay, these are the first and second to blink if there's safety car restart. So 69 laps down. We're going to 101 laps. That's the plan. There was a time certain finish for the race, I think, of 20 to 5, but we're well inside that window at the moment.
Now, there's another replay. This is the number 2 Bilski Tanda Audi.
Oh, gone off again.
And ploughing through the dirt off the exit of the Porsche Dipper. Was on the dirty line. Bilski managed to get it back on track, but pulled a lot of material back out onto the racing circuit, and that'll be right on the racing line. So there's lots going on here right now.
Car was sitting in the top 5 at the time too. So it's still Denyer, Martin, Hackett, Moore, Bilski, Largo and Russell, Edwards and Smythe, Griffith and Perkins in the top 8. Bates and Mees, the Australian current GT champion, back there in P9. And now the Quinn and Murphy, Aston Martin, back to P10.
So the race leader is the Denyer Morecambe McLaren. There he is, just in picture there now is the Ellingham Fastway Audi. Oh, just about stopped. That was nearly going to be a collision with the Talbot Squirk Audi. So they went long in their first run, Craig, very, very long. They pitted on lap number 37. So that car will be looking to go to about lap 83.
Problem with
83, yeah, continuing problems by the looks of it for Tony Quinn and the RJ's Aston Martin. A lot of damage to the rear of the car, possibly the rear diffuser's broken as well.
Looking forward to a pretty good weekend. This weekend he was with Greg Murphy driving the car for the first time. You can see, yeah, the guards rubbing on the right rear tyre. Quite a bit of damage there. He's been into the pits once, and clearly they haven't been able to fix the problem. So we have a new race leader. The Denyer Morecambe McLaren leads from the Martin Padiachi Porsche after their pit stop. Then Hackett and Story. And as you say, they will probably run long in car 59.
Well, they have
Just
to.
Cuts car, yeah.
So 46 laps on top of the 37 that Nathan pitted on takes them out to about lap 83. So lap 83, 84 is when we would expect the Just Cuts McLaren onto pit lane. Just looking at the left rear on the number 2 Audi. Some rear bodywork flapping around with that car. Mike, you on the scene down there, mate?
Yeah, guys, the guys are just trying to take out the a part of the inner guard on the left rear of this thing. I'll tell you what, this car, I don't think it's got a panel on it that hasn't got some sort of damage. It's certainly been in the wars today.
Car that's run by Troy Russell for Audi Sport Customer Racing here in Australia.
They were
6 Audis this weekend.
They were 5th.
They were doing well. In fact, I thought Bilski...
GT's back in the car. So, I mean, the plus side is while they're taking the pit stop and trying to do this change, they do have some time to try and get this sorted with the compulsory pit stop. So GT's back in the car.
Their time is 1:27 seconds because Bilski is rated as an AM3. And, of course, Garth being a current supercar driver, a Pro 1.
Race leader, championship leader, Denyer Nathan Morecambe.
Yeah, Denyer behind the wheel at the moment. His times are pretty consistent. They've just warned him on the radio that Largo is coming through and Russell is coming through, but they're a fair way back in traffic. In fact, they've just pitted, so they've dropped down to P10 as well now. So Griffith and Perkins are being shown as P2 on the road, then Bates and Mees P3 after the safety car restart. Martin and Padiachi, of course, pitted. Moore and Longhurst have pitted. Tony complaining about some transmission problems with the Aston Martin. Bilski and Tansler still in P7, but out of the race at this stage, so probably won't see the car come back out, unfortunately. So this is a car that basically won the first round of the championship at Phillip Island. They did very, very well at Sydney Motorsport Park. They've been consistent. They qualified 8th and finished 1st at Phillip Island, and they beat Shane van Gisbergen by about half a McLaren car length in a fantastic race at the finish. They qualified 8th and finished 4th at Sydney Motorsport Park. Weren't quite happy with the setup of the car there. In fact, all the McLarens at Sydney Motorsport Park had some oversteer problems, particularly early in the race, and they elected during their longer compulsory pit stop to actually make some changes to the rear of this car, and it actually took them far longer than what the compulsory pit stop even suggested they should take, but it was worthwhile. It did transform the car mid-race and made it a far quicker car towards the end of the race, hence their P4.
Well, the majority of the cars are going to be pitting in the next sort of probably 2 to 3 laps, with the majority of the field taking their first pit stops before about lap 26. This car decided to go longer. We're expecting this car in around lap 83, because Grant does have to complete a minimum of 46 laps for Nathan Morgan to get back in it.
Not a bad time for Daniel, 1:32.7. So he's down there with pretty much the top 5 front runners of the race, given we're 73 laps down.
Just past the 2-hour mark. This is Mark Griffiths on pit lane. And the number 1 Jamek Pem Audi. Tony Bates handing over to Christopher Mees. A little bit down the order after that incident a little bit earlier on.
This will be a bit of a surprise for Jack Perkins and Mark Griffith, because they struggled with this car earlier in the weekend. It's an older spec Mercedes SLS, and Mark Griffin, part of the Griffin Property Group, also has a number of Hog's Breath franchises in Australia. But a former Erebus car this way. In fact, I think it's still owned by Erebus, and he's actually leasing it for the championship.
Well, they've just pitted out of the 2nd position. Griffith out, Perkins will get in. Andrew McPherson heads back out on track in the number 51 Porsche.
Yeah, they're back in P15 with young Brad Shields. Deeks and McConville, we really haven't seen them all race pretty much, right, have we? They've had a shocker out in the Ferrari, so unfortunately that incident they had earlier in the race, and after...
Oh, the McPherson Porsche, that's out off the exit of pit lane.
And damage to the front end of the car too.
It has just come out of pit lane, and I'm wondering if it hasn't done something similar. Jack Perkins came out of there earlier on in the weekend, looped it up on cold tyres, and actually made contact with the inside part of the Armco. As the Sticks McLaren goes through, watch left-hand side of the shot, and that is exactly what he's done.
Now again, see, cold tyres. They can't use tyre warmers in this category. He's come out there, just powered it up a little bit too early. Wasn't quite ready for the reaction. Cold tyres, no grip, turned the car around, and that's enough to really take them out of the race, because of the damage to that front end. There's coolant coming out, and unfortunately, it looks like the McPherson Shields efforts finished. Back in P17 they were. This is the Hampton Downs 101. It's round 3 for the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship, folks. We're certainly hoping you're enjoying it. 1:30.5, the fastest lap of the race so far, set by Garth Tander. Looks like they're out.
And potentially a safety car coming up here, and the race leader is on pit lane. Race leader is on pit lane. Grant Denyer.
So if they haven't called the safety car, this will play very much into their hands.
So is Grant out of the car, so they're going to do tyres. Techno team, very experienced Bathurst winners. It is Grant out of the car now. Need to just figure out how many laps he's done as part of that run.
Very experienced team. Grant House is the team manager for this team, but they do have mechanics out from Europe running this effort this weekend. The car is actually owned by Melbourne businessman Alex Fraines, who just loves his McLarens, just wants to be involved in the sport, takes a very, very low-profile position with the team, comes to a number of the rounds, but thoroughly enjoys to see his McLaren run at the front.
Tony Quinn's on pit lane. He will hand over to Greg Murphy. Turns the car off. It's up in the air.
So they're still P6, despite the problems they've had and the fact that he was turned around following that incident with Bates and Badiki. They're still sitting in a fairly comfortable position with Murph still to get into the car.
He will be doing it right now. The RJ's Licorice Aston Martin has been in the wars today. Sort of got off sequence as they were about to take their first compulsory pit stop, and the safety car just did not help them at all.
Car has been a regular top 10 contender in the championship, qualified 5th Phillip Island and finished 5th there at Sydney Motorsport Park. They were a bit back in qualifying, 14 finished in P9. And Tony was looking forward to having a tremendous result here this weekend at the Hampton Downs facility, which he owns. And, of course, the 44-year-old New Zealand superstar, Greg Murphy, back having his first drive in the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship. So Nathan Morecambe back in the Just Cuts McLaren.
Just trying to confirm how many laps I had them at lap 37 for their first pit stop. We just confirmed that Grant doesn't have to get back in the car as they come back out on track ahead of the Sticks McLaren. Should still... It might have the Edwards Smythe Ferrari into the lead ahead of the Largo Russell Lamborghini. They're still right in the mix considering they've had a drive-through. Fourth, Martin Patiacci in the Porsche. Moore and Longhurst up to P5 in the number 96 Aston Martin. Then it's Hackett and Story.
Clark Quinn now on the tail of Nathan Walker. Morfman, of course, has come out of the pits on cold tyres. So the two McLarens running nose to tail at the moment. So Largo and Russell, fastest time last time around for them was a 1:31.25. That's their fastest lap of the race. So David Russell back behind the wheel of the number 23 Lamborghini as Quinn looks around the outside of Nathan Morgan.
Now, Craig, I've got the Hackett Story Mercedes back on pit lane. They had taken their second compulsory stop as the McLarens are side by side down at the Porsche Dipper. So we need to find out what has happened there with the Hackett Story 63, because I don't believe that's scheduled. They had taken, I believe, their second stop because they pitted right with the number 911 Martin.
Oh, look at
Patiacci car.
Oh, Quinn almost tags the rear end of Nathan Walker.
Yeah, you don't want to run these cars up over the curbs.
Now,
definitely not as stiff and as low as they are.
This is for first and second in the championship. Remember, these are the two cars that are 1 and 2 in the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship coming into this round and 1 round to go.
So we've got it as Edwards and Smythe in the race lead in the number 88 Ferrari 458. Denya Morgan, Largo Russell, Martin Patiacci, Moore Longhurst, Talbot, Fouracre, Bilski Tander, Clark Queen, Mad Mike Whittett, Bates and Mees in 9th, Griffith and Perkins up into the top 10 in the SLS GT3.
Down to the pits, and what do you got for us, Mike?
Yeah, got Grant Denya with me. Grant, there was a little bit of a concern because you stopped a lot later than everybody else. The fact you've got all of your time laps in.
Yeah, we definitely have.
Okay.
We had a little bit of a concern about the front left tyre. Just a couple of safety cars ago, just started to sort of muck around a little bit and sort of grate across the road when you sort of turn and brake. So we thought as soon as my minimum laps are done, we'll just jump out just in case one of those tyres is a little bit second-hand. So Nathan will do a good job now. The boys are having a red-hot crack, you can see at the moment. So she's on. It's on.
Yeah, clearly we're just watching some of the action out on track, and you've managed to keep it pretty clean all day. A lot of the guys are having major dramas out there.
It's hot and sticky. This track's actually quite busy to drive for a long period of time. A lot of turning going on. Look, we don't have the fastest car here this weekend, but we've got great fuel economy, hence why we can go a lot longer than everybody else. Plus, it looks after its tyres pretty well. So while our single lap speed isn't the most spectacular, over the duration of the race, we're hoping it might pan out okay. And Nathan and I are pretty close in time, so you know we're a pretty sexy pairing, you might say.
Great job, mate, and we look forward to seeing you at the end.
Okay, love you. Good night.
Now, by my calculations, of course, the Quinn car is a lap down, so he's trying to unlap himself on Nathan Morecambe. So the timing mod is showing 76 laps for the Denya Morecambe car. It's actually showing 75 laps. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nathan elects to move over and let him through. But it doesn't look like at this stage he wants to. And of course, you've got the Edwards Smythe Ferrari closing on them as well.
So it's the Edwards Smythe Ferrari 458 race leader, yet to take their second compulsory pit stop. I've miscalculated slightly there. I'm just trying to do the addition with, obviously, when Grant's got in the car. So they've done the amount of laps, so that's good. They can confirm that. They're looking in a very, very good position.
Actually, it's not the Edwards Smythe car behind. It's McConville.
That's McConville and Dietz in the 8.
So they've had quite a long pit stop. They're well down. And obviously, they've done, they're showing 73 laps, but they've had some issues.
So the race leader yet to take their second stop is the Smythe Edwards Ferrari from the Denya Morecambe McLaren.
So the battle is on. This is for the championship. But Clark Quinn 1 lap down. There's the man on the move, David Russell in the Lamborghini that started this race from pole position. So Russell is turning lap times of 1:31.4. Edwards 1:32.3. Martin and Patiacci back there in T4 in the Porsche 1:31.9. And Richard Moore in the Aston Martin 1:31.6. That's a great time.
Yeah, Richard Moore in the car. That's their best lap of the race, actually, and they are in the top 5. I believe the Edward Smythe, number 88, still... Actually, no, they have taken their pit stop, so they actually are in the equation here. So their compulsory pit stop times obviously aided them as well. So they have taken their second stop. They pitted on lap number 70. So Edwards and Smythe looking like they're in a good position here, still with 24 laps to go, or time permitting, 43.5 minutes.
Peter Edwards was telling me just before the start of the race that he's actually loving this track. He just feels so comfortable here. He owns Marilimo Motorsport along with Mark Coffey, the 50% shareholders. He's in charge of the Smorgon family business, which was formerly Smorgon Steel in Australia. And now they run agriculture, property, that kind of stuff. They grow tomatoes, broccoli, mangoes. In fact, they're about a third, I think, biggest supplier of most of those products right through Australia. So a very experienced businessman, but a pretty handy race driver of a weekend as well.
So Edward Smythe from Denya, Morecambe, Largo, Russell, Martin Padiachi, Moore, Longhurst, Talbot, Foraker in 6th, in the number 6 Squirk Audi, Bilski, Tander, 7th, Quinn, Widdett in 8th, Bates, Mees, 9th, Griffith in Perkins in position 10. And haven't the positions seesawed over the last sort of half an hour, 40 minutes.
Look at Russell now, down onto the back of the 6th McLaren of Clark Quinn, through Pirelli Corner, onto this newly extended back straight here at Hampton Downs. I'll touch 250 kilometres per hour as they come down and brake hard for what is the Foster's hairpin.
Well, they are chasing.
Russell down the inside.
Yeah, David Russell is chasing Nathan Morecambe for that second position. So the gap to the Edward Smythe Ferrari is 21 seconds currently to these two cars, the white and black McLaren and the black and red Lamborghini, for second and third.
You can see as the tyre pressures have come up in the McLaren that Morecambe's driving after the pit stop has been able to drive away again from Clark Quinn.
Just looking for the compulsory pit stop times for the number 88. So they were 1:40 on pit lane for their compulsory pit stops. So that's quite a big advantage for them with their driver pairing. So we hadn't seen too much of them. They were in that top 10 pretty regularly, but they've certainly made a big gain and lead this motor race from Grant Denya, Nathan Morecambe, Roger Largo and David Russell. Battle for second and third on track. Grant Denya, Nathan Morecambe at the wheel behind the Just Cuts McLaren, and in behind them is a fired-up David Russell coming back from a drive-through. That is the battle for second and third. It is the Edward Smythe Ferrari leading. They have taken their second compulsory pit stop on lap number 70, and at the moment, Craig, they are 21 seconds up the road from this battle for second and third, with just 22 laps to go.
I was going to say 22 laps to go. So, but Graham Smythe is a pretty handy little peddler too. I mean, he's driven Ferraris, he's got experience with them, a multiple karting champion from New Zealand, raced with John O'Lister in the championship last year, and again, Russell absolutely shadowing the back end of the McLaren.
These guys are about 6 seconds up the road on the Martin Padiachi Porsche 911, number 911. GT3R. So out of that second pit stop cycle, where the majority of the top teams have now taken their stops, Edwards and Smythe, we sort of missed off the radar, and they're right there now in the mix. Mike down on pit lane.
So I managed to track down Peter Hackett just a minute ago. The reason that car came in twice for its second pit stop, they miscalculated by a whole 18 seconds. They were short in that pit stop, so they had to come back in and readdress that.
That would explain. I did think, I knew they were on pit lane for a second time not long after their second compulsory stop. So that's hurt them to the tune that they are now back down in the 12th position with Dominic Story back behind the wheel.
And they pitted, that kind of team to make that sort of mistake too.
They pitted in second place behind the number 911 Porsche.
That's right. Eggleston Motorsport running that Mercedes-Benz, and they've won the DVS Series at Australia. They've won the Kumo Challenge Series at Australia. They've raced GT production for a long, long time. In fact, Rachel Wagg, who's now Rachel Eggleston, her father Martin Wagg was the guy that really pioneered the GT Championship in Australia before it was sold to Tony Quinn.
So right now, looking at the top three, in fact, you could probably make that the top four with the Martin Padiachi Porsche just sitting their fastest lap of the race, the 1:31.5. Edward Smythe, last lap, 32.0 as the blue flags are out. This is a pass for second.
Nice clean pass too. He didn't make it easy for him. Nathan made David fight for it all the way, but gave him enough room. And times last time around, a 1:31.7 for Morecambe, 1:38 flat or 1:31.8 flat for Russell. So they're not mucking around. And just to give you an idea, the Edward Smythe car, 1:32. So in terms of lap times, it's within 3 or 4 tenths of these cars.
Yeah, but they're 21 seconds up the road with 21 laps to go. So these two are going to need to eke out the better part of a second a lap to get to the Ferrari 458.
Good inter-team communication between these guys. In fact, the Lamborghini team had a problem with their pit spike after this morning's warm-up session, which they believe would have caused them an issue in the race. So they actually went down to the McLaren team and borrowed a part off them. Let's go down to Mike.
Oh, with me down here, Mad Mike. You're a smiley kind of fella anyway, but the grin on your face at the moment is amazing.
Wow, that was just amazing, you know, to get out there. And yeah, I managed to get past about 7 guys, and I think just with the drifting, I'm very used to proximity and remembering the track, you know. So what I noticed, once you have a yellow, everyone kind of follows like sheep, and they're all following each other, and just memorize that track, you know. And when they're following each other, there's an open door, bam, and just pounce in there, and you know, just get in and manage to get past. Did 7 clean passes and got us up to 6th place. So oh man, just well over exceeded my expectations. The team here are just amazing on the Darrell Lee sticks. McLaren is just, oh man, this is a blast. We just smashed out 40 odd laps, and yeah, the intensity is insane. You know, just staying in that focus, and yeah, you know, I got that little drink button, which was emptied out the water pretty quick, but yeah, just amazing opportunity.
Now, clearly, there's been a lot of action out on the track today. You're a new driver to this sort of circuit, or even racing in its entirety. How did you go with just keeping clean?
So, you know, I did find, you know, after about 10 laps, the car actually starts getting slippery. It takes about 5 laps to come in, and then, yeah, you have any little corrections, the tyre gets too hot really fast, and then, man, I did have a couple of moments, hung it out sideways, and just managed to keep it in there. And yeah, just keep punching through. The numbers is consistent. You know, it's really the car brings up all the info, sector times the whole way around the track. Mikey's been on comm with me all weekend, and just stay calm, stay relaxed, deep breaths, and yeah, managed to punch through the spots. Now Clark's back in, going to finish off the race for us. And
awesome, mate. We will look forward to seeing you in the car again.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Mad Mike Whittard has done an awesome job. There is our race leader. We haven't seen much of these guys today, but they now find themselves at the top of the standings. They have done an outstanding job. Peter Edwards and Graham Smythe, they've just sort of sneaked up on us here. They have completed both of their pit stops on lap 23 and lap 70, and they are the race leaders with 20-second advantage over the Largo Russell Lamborghini and the Denya Morecambe McLaren 650S.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Hampton Downs 101 from Tony Quinn's brand new Hampton Downs International Motorsport Park, 1 hour south of Auckland. And this is the Ferrari that is our race leader. Peter Edwards, the car owner. His team have won the Bathurst 12 Hour with Craig Lowndes behind the wheel of Ferrari only a couple of years ago, and have announced that Lowndes and Whincup will team up with Maranello next year for the Bathurst 12 Hour. In a brand new Ferrari 488. We were hoping to see the new Ferrari here this weekend, but unfortunately that's being prepped for the Bathurst Challenge Day, which is coming up at the end of November, where a lot of the GT3 cars that will be racing in the Bathurst 12 Hour will get some track time. So Lowndes and Whincup will race that 488 at Bathurst and then go on and do the 12 Hour next year.
So Nathan Morecambe's just set his fastest lap of the race at a 1:31.536 in the 3rd place, just cuts McLaren. Edwards and Smythe still leading this race. And at the beginning of the weekend, Craig, if someone had said, well, you know, who was up with the favourite Kiwis, I think a lot were picking Dominic Story based on his recent form. We know Graham Smythe is no slouch, but they've sort of slipped under the radar. They haven't set the world on fire in practice and qualifying. But right now, with 18 laps left to go, they seem to be in the box seat, and absolutely categorically they have completed both of their compulsory pit stops on lap 23 and lap 70.
What's worked in their favour, of course, is they've only got a pit stop time of 100 seconds because Peter Edwards, the car owner, is rated as an amateur 2, whereas Graham Smythe is rated as a Pro 4. Now, I think Edwards has probably been a lot quicker than what people probably gave him credit for. And as I said this morning, he said, I just love this track. It's just clicked for me. And he's put in a very, very solid performance in the car and now leading the race.
Well, he's very, very experienced. He has spent a lot of time behind the wheel of these GT3 cars over a long period of time. And Graham Smythe, he's not a full-time racer. He's a very handy fabricator. He's raced kart sport. He's just built a Mazda circuit kart up that's a bit of a weapon, but does not race all the time.
And has won the Bathurst 12 Hour. We should talk about Peter Edwards. He was part of that winning team that had Lowndes and Tony Volando, Mika Salo, the factory Ferrari driver, and John Bow as well, that took that victory at Bathurst a couple of years ago, with Lowndes, of course, leading the charge.
So the headlights are on, there's some lap traffic for them.
1:31.4, so that's Nathan Morecambe's fastest lap of the race so far. So their race pace is getting better and better as the race goes on.
They've taken about 3 seconds out of the race leader. Graham Smythe behind the wheel. David Russell and Nathan Morecambe a second apart. And they've got 17 seconds to make up with 17 laps to go. So the math may work. It's going to be dependent on traffic and how good this race car is at the end. Not a bad return, considering young Graham had a wee off in the warm-up this morning.
Yes, he did. But no, it's a great race car, this, the 458. It had a number of race wins last year. It's a beautifully balanced car, and it does everything well.
So race leader Graham Smythe on track, 17-second advantage. Absolutely have taken both of their compulsory pit stops on lap 23. Graham got out of the car and handed over to Peter Edwards, who's done a stunning job because they've just sneaked under the radar. Second pit stop on lap 70 to complete their compulsory pit stops. Graham's in the car, he's circulating in the mid-32s. Those chasing him, Largo and Russell, Denya, Morecambe in the mid-31s, trying to eke out that gap and close it up.
So Edwards and Smythe leading, the Lamborghini of Largo Russell P2, the McLaren of Morecambe back there in P3, the Matt and Padiachi Porsche 4, Moore and Longhurst, that's a great effort back in the top 5. Talbot and Foraker, they've come good too. They're back in P6, Bilski and Tander P7.
Peter Edwards looking on, and he's looking pretty nervous there. Little glance to the camera, down on pit lane. 16.5 seconds. He's just dropped back into the 31, so he certainly can't afford to have a second a lap taken out of him, but Graham's got the car speed. Was in a position to potentially win the Highlands 101 a year ago with the Trass Family Motorsport Ferrari 458, and based on that form, the Marinello boys and Peter Edwards have gone, young Graham, come over here and have a play with us because we like what you're doing. He's doing the job at the moment. But they literally have sneaked under the radar all weekend.
They really have, and because the Ferraris have never been anywhere near the top 10 in any of the timesheets. And Cam McConnell says, look, the car feels like a good race car. It feels like it's going to be a great race car, but it simply hasn't got the qualifying pace. But we think with its fuel economy, with its tyre degradation, that it'll be as good as anything out there.
So lap traffic's still going to be a factor. 31.9 for Smythe, 31.4 for Russell, 31.2 for Nathan Morecambe, 31.3 for John Martin in the number 911 GT3R Porsche. 16 laps left to go.
And 16.5 seconds, so Russell is closing. Has he got enough? A 1:31.2 for Morecambe, 1:31.3 for Martin now in the Porsche, 1:32.4 for Talbot and Foraker.
Yeah, they're taking about half a second a lap out of the race leader, but Graham can afford to cruise a little bit. You don't want to take your mind off the game, but these three, including John Martin in the Porsche, who's about 6 seconds down on these two, are charging. They are setting personal bests lap by lap, and John Martin's just done a 31.3. David Russell at a 31.7, Morecambe at a 31.8.
Beautiful Lamborghini V10. Basically the same engine that runs in the Audi, but has different size restrictors because the aero on this car is not as good. So they have bigger restrictors, gets more power. The Audi, because it's so better under brakes and so better through the air, they run a smaller restrictor.
Now, Craig, am I mistaken, or is there a little bit of light drizzle just on a camera shot there? And in the background, there is some drizzle in the air around the Hampton Downs area. A little bit of light rain. It has got darker over the last half an hour or so. The sun looks to have gone away. The track temperature's now dropping quite suddenly. There is a little bit of moisture hanging around the Hampton Downs facility.
86 laps down. Yeah, track temperature has dropped down to about 28.9, so it has cooled off in the last sort of 5-6 minutes. Let's go down to Mike with Peter Edwards.
Peter Edwards, I can see you here. You're jiggling, you're wobbling, you're starting to look a bit anxious, mate. You're in a very good position at the moment, though.
We are in a very good position. Had some luck during the race. Hopefully that luck continues.
So the cars clearly run very, very well all day. You know, the safety cars, have they helped you out at all?
They did, yeah. That first safety car really gave us a leg up. But the car's set up really nicely. We didn't have the pace in qualifying, you know, a bit of an older car, but the race pace, the tyre wear, fuel, it's a really good platform for around here, and it's an amazing track.
All right, mate, we'll get back watching, and we'll keep a close eye on you.
Dominic Story's just set the fastest lap of the race at a 1:30.27. They've had some issues mistiming their second compulsory pit stop in 11th. Christopher Mees just rocked in a 30.66 in the 8th position. Graham Smythe, our race leader, has just set his personal best in the fastest lap of the race for the number 88 Ferrari at a 1:31.945.
That's a great time for the Ferrari, and the gap down to 15.8 tenths of a second. Gee, 87 laps down. And I don't know if it'll do it. So Russell in the Lamborghini, P2, and you can see now specks of rain, a little bit of moisture starting to form on the windscreen of the Aston Martin.
Yeah, it's a few of the Waikato bugs on the windscreen there too as part of the equation with the Tony Quinn, Greg Murphy, Aston Martin. Greg's back behind the wheel. Just looking at his lap pace, they are in the 12th position. Last lap for Murph was a 33.2. You see, they were struggling for a little bit of car balance earlier on in the event. Headlights are on for Graham Smythe, certainly a lot darker around the racetrack. Can you actually see the headlight glare reflection off the pit wall here at Hampton Downs? So 1:31.9 again, goes quicker again, Graham Smythe.
Clearly the track is coming to the car. As it grips up, more rubber goes down. It really does suit the balance of this car. And look how beautiful it sits. It's riding the bumps beautifully.
Was just about to say that, Craig. Yeah. Look how settled that car sits, and off the exit of the Foster's hairpin as well.
And it's almost now equal to how well the Mercedes-Benz looked earlier in the race. But Graham Smythe doing a fantastic job. He shared a car with Tony D'Alberto in the opening round of the Australian Endurance Championship in the Ferrari 458. As we mentioned, huge karting success in New Zealand. First in the Kart Sport Championships a number of times. 2014, 2016 as well. His best finish has been a fourth at Phillip Island. Sits 15th in the championship at the moment on 125 points.
Well, certainly when Tony was in with us earlier on in the call, he was singing the praises of young Graham Smythe, and I know how quick he's been from his previous experience in the championship and here in New Zealand with the Trass team. And look at this, he's leading the event. He's setting the fastest laps of the race for the race car with just 13 laps to go, and that gap is 15.5 seconds. Dominic Story's just lowered that mark. The lap record now stands at a 1:30.112 and up to P11 on the comeback after their miscalculation with their pit stop.
Your race leaders with just on 89 laps completed and a 1:31.9 for the Smythe Ferrari last time across. So it's still Margot and Russell in the Lamborghini. From Denyer and Morecambe in the McLaren, Martin and Pagliacci in the Porsche, Moore and Longhurst in the Aston Martin, Bilski and Tanner. That's been a good comeback for them, considering the issue they had earlier with Daniel Bilski. Then Talbot and Foraker in the Audi, Bates and Mees back there in P8 for the reigning Australian GT champion, Christopher Mees, and then Clark Quinn, Wedette, top 9 at the moment. So well down in championship points, and Griffith and Perkins rounding out the 10.
This is a big battle, and this continues. David Russell on the lights, just warning the DeVeth Chester Camaro. They're coming and looming up in the rear vision mirrors of the big Camaro.
No doubt about it, that Camaro, it's not a muscle car, is it? It's a muscle car with steroids. It's just so big and powerful.
Big American sledgehammer. Graham Smythe leads by 14.8 seconds over David Russell, with Nathan Morecambe in third in the McLaren. 14.8 second lead as David Russell clears the DeVeth Chester Camaro, missing that rear bumper valance, which was sitting in the middle of the racetrack for a little while earlier on in the event.
Massive engine in that car, some 7.9 litres.
Something like 800 Newton meters of torque.
Gee, muscle power.
Not something to pull a tree out of the ground. Just go and get a Ryder Engineering Camaro.
Oh, surprisingly.
Oh, that's the more Longhurst Aston Martin. They were fifth. They were fifth.
Now, will this cause a safety car? Will this close that gap?
This could be a game changer. The last thing the Edward Smythe Ferrari needs is a safety car, and we are within 10 laps of the end of this race. Richard Moore at the wheel. They were fifth, the second of the Madeki Aston Martins.
Clearly having trouble firing up the car. They were complaining about some transmission issue with the car when Tony Longhurst was behind the wheel. So whether that's the ultimate problem that stopped the car on the track. But what a sad day for the Madeki team.
As Garth Tander's just gone out and try and get that lap record back at a 1:30.161. He's only 500 short of the mark set by Dominic Story a couple of laps ago at a 1:30.112.
Martin 2, yeah, 1:31.02, P4.
Guys, I can confirm that the Aston is a gear selection problem. So they looks like they had some bits ready to do some changes, but yeah, definitely a gear selection problem there.
So I'd be very, very surprised if they didn't bring the safety car out. And the Edwards boys, the Maranello boys have been, no, we do not need this. How many lap cars are going to be between them and this duo, David Russell and Nathan Morecambe, in second and third?
So 11 laps to go. That's what we're currently looking at. 91 laps has just been ticked over by the Edward Smythe Ferrari, the Maranello Motorsport Ferrari, the McLaren back there in P3 at the moment. Martin again quick with a 1:32.02 time in the Porsche 911. Now, of course, run by Walkinshaw Racing.
No call on the safety car yet. They may be trying to determine whether or not they can retrieve that car without having to bring it out.
Paddy Soane's talking to him on the radio, asking if he can get the car fired up. Can he find a gear? And he said, I'm trying to.
Just missed on what part of the racetrack it was sitting there parked. Oh, there it is there. Okay, so off the exit of the Swampy Curves, the entrance to the Swampy Curves, so out of Kev's Carousel. At 92 of 101, there'll be some fingernail biting going on in the pit area at the moment, mainly from the Edward Smythe Maranello team. Is there or isn't there going to be a safety car?
Guys, I can guarantee there is a safety car. The boards are out, and this is going to be a game changer.
And the stranded Moore Madeki car out of fifth position has stopped out on track. From what we're hearing, it's gear selection issues, and a safety car is the last thing, Craig, that the Edward Smythe Maranello team needed. That was the last thing they needed.
They had a 13-second deficit back to, well, the Largo Russell car did. And with only 10 laps remaining, and Smythe was doing such a tremendous job with the lap times that they wouldn't have got to him. I mean, he was within half a second of their best at the time anyhow.
They were looking so comfortable, Paul Forgy and the Brains Trust down there at Maranello Motorsport. They will just be dark on this. Gear selection issues. You heard it on the radio a little bit earlier, Craig, from the team with that second car, with the Madeki team struggling. They'd done such a good job. They were fifth when it stopped with Richard Moore behind the wheel.
And Tony Longhurst, you know, was pretty harsh on himself when I spoke to him this morning about how he felt in the car. He said, it's so aggressive to drive. I'm just not used to it. And it's so, with its aero and everything, you've got to drive it so violently. He said it's been very, very difficult for me to come up to speed, but happy when I spoke to him this morning that he was on the pace.
Two lapped cars between Graham Smythe, David Russell and Nathan Morecambe. First, second and third have closed up. So very, very much. Here's the replay of the car stopping.
Yeah,
there wasn't a lot he could do about that if it's lost drive.
No, and he'd worked himself well inside the top 5, so he's in a great position. So what a shame.
I think that was around, so the run from turn 3 to turn 4 and 5 from Kev's Carousel to Swampy Curves. Well, this race is changing. There's not a lot of time to go. So the Mike Pero Aston Martin getting taken back to a recovery area, and the safety car lights are already out. We are going back racing.
So Graham Smythe, he's the man with a job to do between now and the end of the race. So he's got essentially 10 laps.
93 laps complete. The safety car lights are already out. They've retrieved the Richard Moore Aston Martin, and we have got a race on our hands.
Coming up to take the green flag. So will this be the final run to the flag?
Couple of lap cars between the leader and the second and third place teams. Graham Smythe leads this race, but that gap, they've taken 15 seconds out of him with that safety car intervention.
That'll be Tony D'Alberto in the lap car. There's Morecambe trying to run down the inside. It looks like the Porter Proctor Nissan. And Russell down the inside of D'Alberto in Ash Samardi's Audi.
Can David Russell chase down the Ferrari? Morecambe needs to get a couple of cars out of the way to get back onto the back of the Lamborghini. And this is busy off the restart. The Ferrari try to get away early. Just before the safety car, Dominic Story reset the lap record again to a 130.014, knocking on that 129 barrier. And we're 90 laps into a 101 lap race.
Yeah, this is going to be a fantastic finish, New Zealand. And those of us watching through Fox Sports Australia, this is round 3 of the Australian Endurance Championship.
Morecambe down the inside of D'Alberto. Christopher Mees trying to follow him through.
I thought that was the Proctor Porter Nissan earlier, but of course it's Mees coming through in the Audi, same colours.
I believe they are down a lap though, and he is all over the back of Nathan Morecambe in the McLaren. So there is first, second and third on track. Fourth is the number 911 Porsche. Headlights ablaze. A couple of cars between himself and the back of the number 59 Denya Morecambe McLaren. From a points point of view, this is good for the Just Cuts McLaren.
Well, particularly when you consider the Madiki car is out of the race, and they'll pick up no points this round, and they were third in the championship. And Clark Quinn back there in P8, so he was second in the championship. So if the Just Cuts McLaren finishes inside the top 3, it'll give them an increased lead going into the final round at Highlands Park in 2 weeks' time.
Of course, this is round 3, the final round in a couple of weeks' time, as Craig said, 131.8. Graham Smythe's just set the fastest lap of the race for the number 88 Maranello, 458 Ferrari.
Now that's very impressive. That's a great time considering who he's got banked up behind him.
Russell did take 4 tenths out of him though. 32.9 for Nathan Morecambe, but he had a couple more lap cars to have to contend with off that restart. 94 laps complete.
His best championship finish has been a 4th at Phillip Island for Graham Smythe. But vastly experienced in karting and driving Ferraris. Surprised we haven't seen John O'Lester in the championship this year.
He's been doing a lot of stuff in Asia. He's had some very good drives up there with a couple of teams. Graham Smythe. Wow, could we have another Kiwi winner as Christopher Mees launches down the inside of Nathan Morecambe?
That's how you do it.
It's not for position. Mees is back in 7th. They are down a lap.
That's the 27-year-old German Audi factory driver that's won the Bathurst 12 Hour in 2011.
Well, if Nathan can stay with him, he might actually tow him to the back of David Russell. Russell's closed the gap to Smythe.
Yep.
Took half a second out of him on the previous lap. This is well and truly game on. I was talking about the last time we had a 101 in New Zealand. It was Highlands a year ago, and it was Shane van Gisbergen taking a fairy tale win on New Zealand soil. Can Graham Smythe hold on for yet another Kiwi win?
A personal fastest sector time in sector 3 that time for David Russell.
Took 4 tenths. Personal best 131.0 versus a 131.4 for Smythe. A personal best for the 88 as well.
Fuel loads coming down, tyre grips coming up, temperatures fairly optimum at the moment with a 27.6 degree track temperature, so good conditions for racing.
6 laps left to go, just 6 laps left to go. Graham Smythe, David Russell, they've gotten away a little bit from Nathan Morecambe, who's now got Christopher Mees ahead of him, trying to unlap himself in the 7th position. Smythe, Russell, Morecambe, John Martin in the 911 Porsche, Garth Tander, Liam Talbot in the Squirk Audi.
That's a good effort, yeah.
And Tony Bates and Christopher Mees in 7th.
Looking at the time that John Martin did, 131.6 last time around, so he's 3 tenths off the time set by the Largo Russell Lamborghini. In fact, he's 6 tenths of a second slower. Now, Russell has absolutely got him in his sights. He'll take his time. He doesn't need to rush it. He's got basically 5 laps to do it in.
And who's got the best tyre state under the car? So they both pitted about a lap apart. The David Russell Largo Lamborghini on lap 69, the Edward Smythe Ferrari on lap 88. So they should be in a fairly similar tyre state. Oh, Smythe with a big twitch under brakes down into 1. 31.5 for Smythe, 31.2 for Russell. And they are pretty much nose to tail on that big drag race down to turn number 2. Who's bravest on the brakes?
Well, Russell looks to the outside of the Lamborghini. Smythe covers him well, gives him no room down the inside.
Now, if these two start trying to tie each other up, that's going to allow the Morecambe. Oh, he's gone down the inside. Russell,
No.
oh, he had to get out of it. He committed and then he got out of it.
Yep.
He just about stopped the Lambo.
Backed by Roger Largo, who did a great stint in the middle section of this race, backed by his JBS Coal Stores Empire in Brisbane. There's Roger looking on at the moment. But there's Rick Kemp, who's engineering this car, the Graham Smythe, Peter Edwards car.
Well, both of those camps weren't looking actually too happy off those 2 shots then. As Christopher Mees could be the spoiler here, because look at the gap, he's close to the leaders and he's trying to unlap himself. Will he be a factor here? You would hope not.
David
But at
Russell.
the same time, he's trying to get positions as well.
Peter Edwards looking on. That's Mark Coffey on the right-hand side of him. Mark, of course, the co-owner of Maranello Motorsport. Great business. They buy and sell Ferraris all over the world, race cars and road cars. Been doing it for a long, long time. In fact, Mark's been involved back since the early 2000s in the Ferrari business.
First and second, just half a second, probably less than that is the gap. Graham Smythe trying to hold on to the race lead. We saw a challenge from David Russell on the previous lap. 31.6 for Smythe, 31.6 for Russell.
97 laps down to the Hampton Downs 101, and it's a run to the flag, and it's Ferrari versus Lamborghini versus McLaren. They're your top 3 versus Porsche. Audi back there in P5. Talbot, Foraker, Bates, Mees, Hackett, Story, Griffin and Perkins, Quinn and Widett back in the top 10.
Russell again, very, very quick through the second sector. Is tucked up underneath the rear wing, nose to tail. But look who's lying in wait and behind, not for position, Christopher Mees, and he was a full second quicker than these two on the previous lap. They've dropped Nathan Morecambe off. And Nathan Morecambe's got a couple of seconds gap on on John Martin in that 4th position.
Yeah, Mees gets between Russell.
Oh, Smythe's run wide, Smythe's run wide, and that's allowed David Russell through into the lead. Team looking a bit happier now in the Lamborghini pits.
And now Mees, he's having a go at Smythe as well. That will have unsettled his rhythm. He'll be all over the place. He'll be under pressure now from the Audi factory driver.
Yeah,
Mees now
gonna
diving to
launch
the
down
inside. He won't stop him there. He needs to gather up his thoughts. And of course, one wonders whether the Lamborghini, in terms of its fuel window, because this is one of the heaviest fuel-burning cars in the field, whether he's been able to run with a full map clearly over the last few laps, whether he can maintain that to the finish.
Well, Mees is not helping here. I mean, I know he's not for position. He's trying to unlap himself. He's in 7th position. Just done their fastest lap of the race of the 1:30.567, but he's now split first and second. David Russell, Roger Largo into the lead in the JBS.
And another faster sector time too for sector 3 for Russell, 24.9, and that's really where the strength of the Lamborghini is, through that sweeper and just power up the hill, power down the main straight. Not as good under brakes, not as good aero-wise as the other cars around it, but plenty of horsepower.
Well, Nathan Morecambe's just made up 2 seconds on Graham Smythe, and that gap down to about 1.2 for second and third. David Russell has the race lead with just a 3-lap run to the checkered flag left to go. Darkening skies. You can see how much difference the headlights make on these race cars, considering how sunny it's been earlier on in the race.
Nathan Morecambe now clawing his way back to the rear end of the 458 Ferrari. Can he do anything? Can he move from P3 to P2? And he's got really only 2 laps to do it.
Well, if you're David Russell here and you got your mirrors full of Audi that's not in the fight, what's going through his head right now?
Yeah, I guess David would be quite content to let him go. I mean, I think he's figured out that he's got the pace now over the 2 cars behind him. And so long as he doesn't have to change engine maps to conserve fuel, yes, I thought he would have let Mees go down the inside there, but he didn't. He shut the door at the last minute.
Well, Mees has got the headlights on. He's flashing the headlights. David Russell, he's got the race lead. Mees on the scoring back in the 7th position is down a lap.
And look how close.
A few little dramas.
Look how close Morecambe is now to the back of the Ferrari as well. So he's picked up 2 or 3 car lengths on that lap.
Well, he pulled 2 seconds on the previous lap with Smythe getting passed by Christopher Mees and David Russell. He made a little mistake, just ran the car offline into the dirty part of the racetrack. You see the brake rotors glowing on the front end of the Lamborghini. That's how dark it's getting here at Hampton Downs.
And if you love this race action, folks, the final round of the championship, Highland Park down in the South Island in 2 weeks' time. The Highlands Park 101. And, of course, that's November 12 to 13. You'll see all these guys down there for the final round of the championship.
Just a lap and a half to go. Last lap board should be out next time by. Some of us picked the Lamborghini at the beginning of the weekend. Very, very strong here on Friday. Great job in qualifying.
He's let him through.
Yeah, Russell's going to let Mies through.
That's smart move, David. No point finding him. There's nothing to gain there. So just
couldn't afford to run offline doing it though, because Smythe is not that far behind. And Morecambe has just set his fastest lap of the race at a 1:31.04 and is within half a second.
Got him.
It was challenging.
Not quite.
He looked to the outside.
Not quite the room to pass there, but he looked down the outside, again, trying to rattle Smythe as much as he can.
Had a little fake down the inside. That's off the high pull hairpin down to the Porsche dipper, off the Porsche dipper. David Russell leads this race. Morecambe looks to the inside. Smythe's parked it right in the middle of the racetrack. He looks to the outside. But here comes John Martin in the GT3R Porsche. He's within about a second of that group as well.
So Nathan will be thinking now, second on the podium or championship points? What's the game I'm going to play for the final lap here?
Looking for the last lap board for David Russell.
This is the last lap, folks, of the Hampton Downs 101. And it's a Lamborghini leading a Ferrari, leading a McLaren, leading a Porsche, leading an Audi. It doesn't get much better in terms of GT's performance car racing worldwide.
There's not much in it for second, third and fourth. Russell's got a little bit of a gap now. Smythe is trying to fight and hold on ahead of the championship leading Just Cuts McLaren, Grant Denyer. And Nathan Morecambe at the wheel has done an outstanding job, but boy, has this race changed in the last half an hour or so.
Well, certainly the safety cars livened it up mid-race, but this has been a fantastic sprint to the finish, and what an impressive drive by Graham Smythe. I mean, he's really come of age in this race, hasn't he?
Still, absolutely, he's done an outstanding job. Just made one little mistake to allow David Russell to get through, who was applying the blowtorch pressure-wise, and there's still just that little hint of misty rain in the air.
And still
around the motor racing circuit, Morecambe again looks to the outside.
And of course now he's got to cover Martin behind him as well, so he can't afford to take any risks.
Martin is charging. Morecambe looking down the inside. Can't get it done. Slips it down the inside. Now there's contact. There's contact. Smythe's gone around.
No, he spun.
Tears the rear wing off the number 88 Ferrari. Morecambe's got damage. That's got John Martin up into the second position on the last lap. David Russell, pressure off.
David Russell,
to take the victory.
Congratulations, the 2011 second of the championship, 2015 second in Porsche Carrera Cup, Spa 24-hour experience, V8 supercar development experience, and he's taken the win for Lamborghini, the Hampton Downs 101. Roger Largo, enormously happy, and he's backed this man for a long time, and they were about due for a change of luck, and it's come this weekend at Hampton Downs.
Well, there's going to be a little bit of drama out of that last lap clash. Looking at the results, David Russell, Roger Largo, the team congratulating each other. John Martin and Duvashin Padiachi up into second. They were fourth at the start of that lap. Denyer, Morecambe in third. Bilski, Tander in fifth. The Edwards Smythe Ferrari dropping down the order, yet to cross the line.
Bates and Mies will finish in P7. Hacken's Story after that fight back at P8.
Yeah, the Ferrari's going nowhere. It's done a lot of damage to the back of that race car. Roger Largo, David Russell with the victory. John Martin, Duvashin Padiachi in third. Grant Denyer in third, ahead of Nathan Morecambe, Daniel Bilski, Garth Tander, Peter Edwards, Graham Smythe, but they are parked on the racetrack at the conclusion of the 101. Holy crap. So that'll be a very, very disappointed Graham Smythe. Down there at the Porsche dipper, Nathan Morecambe tried to go down the inside, and certainly from our point of view, didn't look to be a whole heap of room down there. And that's a part of the racetrack where a lot of the cars have been caught out throughout the weekend. If you're too narrow on the apex down there, the cars bottom out and they tend to fire it across the road. And in that case, it just looked like, unfortunately, maybe into the path of Graham Smythe. But hey, take nothing away from David Russell and Roger Largo, though. David's been so confident this weekend, and that car has well and truly suited this racetrack at Hampton Downs.
Yeah, you've got to think that Nathan was probably a bit impetuous there, because he should have been playing the points game for the Endurance Championship. Sure, it would have been one more step on the podium, but it wouldn't have been a race win. And while, you know, it's very easy to commentate and make a call when you're outside the car, he had to drive it. The boys did a tremendous job, but we'll still, subject to penalties that may be applied post-race to Morecambe and Denyer, should still lead the championship.
Well, what a result for David Russell and Roger Largo. What a race. What a race. We talked about it all weekend, how close these 101s have been, both here in New Zealand and back home for you, Craig, in Australia.
Yeah, there's never been a bad one. I mean, we've had two great races. This is another fantastic race. There's David Russell. What a great effort. Roger Largo. This is their first big win together. Largo coming back after a massive Carrera Cup crash at Townsville last year, where he broke a leg, ribs, punctured lungs. And David is just the loveliest kid. He's the nicest bloke in pit lane. And listen, factory driver when it comes to the Enduros. Been around a long, long time in all sorts of motor racing in Australia. Started in production cars in a Proton Satria. And there's your race winner, Roger Largo, that would no doubt be absolutely over the moon with the effort that his boy put in. And how quick was the car? Wow. I mean, really?
When he needed to, David Russell just got up on the wheel, chased down, you know, various leaders.
He's got a smile so big he looks like he swallowed a grand piano, and he's like that every time he gets out of the car, really.
Great race. Now we can look forward to the Highlands 101 in a couple of weeks' time down in the deep south.
Before the TV.
Largo and Russell, Martin and Pagliacci, they got lucky on the last lap, but a good result. They still had to be there.
Well, John Martin was charging. He was setting his best lap times in that last sort of 10-lap period as well. Denyer and Morecambe in third. What may or may not come out?
Well, boys, I tell you what, there are easier ways to win a race.
Look, there sure is. Just so happy, you know. We're a very small team. The boys work extremely hard. I'm more happier for them than I am for us. Like, they just put in all the time. You know, Rogers, we've been chipping away, and, you know, for us, this is a big win, you know. So happy. Roger did an awesome job. So happy to be able to get out. We got lucky with the safety car to bunch everyone up, but them's the brakes, so yeah, very, very happy.
I've got to say, Roger, how much were you cheering for an Aston Martin there?
Not much, but I didn't think they'd bring it out because he was fairly out of the way, so I thought, oh, we're toast. But we got to drive through and we still won the thing. You know, there's no blue flags. I was trying to lap cars. They wouldn't let me through. It was a bit ridiculous. And we still ended up winning. It's unbelievable. I can't believe it's probably the best race we've ever done, the best win we've ever had.
Not a bad old tank, is it?
Nah, I think we're still coming to terms with it. But great track and, yeah, awesome effort by all the boys.
Awesome drive by Dave. Put it on pole. What can I say? He's the best.
Bravo, boys. I'm going to head over here. We'll find our second place guys, because where the heck did that come from?
I don't know, man. I was just pushing like flat out. So it's it's credit to the team really. Like they done the job on this one. So we didn't exactly win with you know, the most amount of pace, but the Varjan did an awesome job in the middle stint. We got the safety car initially, and that was perfect. But then the second one really didn't really help. So it was probably, you know, we probably ended up back at square one. So.
Division, there's so much about strategy in these races, but I think that sort of went out the window near the end, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it really did. Especially, you know, once we got to our stint, when I was in the car, it was just basically flat out, pull as big as a gap as you can. We got unfortunate with the last safety car, so yeah, John had to do a bit of work there, but you know, we have to take some luck with it, and feel bad for the guys at McLaren and Ferrari, but it's good for us and Walkinshaw GT3.
I quickly got to just ask you, what was the traffic like at the end there?
Holy man, it was manic. It's like on the way into Auckland, I reckon. It was about as bad, but no, the car was pretty good at the end. Like the track sort of came to us a bit, so yeah, looking forward to Highlands now, and I think we got a good package for there.
Brilliant stuff. Traffic was pretty good there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be
well
good.
Well done. Okay, we'll head over here because we have got a third place car. Mr. Denyer, I'll just quickly grab you. Tony Quinn's trying to drag you away, but it was looking like second possibly for a bit there.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant hustle by Nathan right at the end there. He had the pace of the two, well, at least the car in front of us, that Ferrari, pulled him in. Ferrari's doing a fair bit of blocking in those last couple of laps, which you sort of tend to do at the end of a race. Maybe a double blocking manoeuvre maybe into that area where they came together, but...
How's the heart rate?
Oh, it's still pumping at the moment, but we had good pace in that last stint. The car just came on to us from the get-go, from the green light to the checker flag. It just kept coming to us. And then at the last safety car, I was thinking, oh, we can go for it. And I got up beside of him, and it just looked like he copped straight in front of me. And
but we'll see what happens. But for now, we got third place and still leading the championship.
Exactly. Great for the championship, boys. I'll let you get ready for the podium. What a race, what a finish. And I tell you what, the drama, you can never pick what's going to happen with motorsport. Back with the podium in just a moment. Hi, mate. Okay, I need the results. They'll have them in the media centre. Nah, nothing. Okay, hang on. I'll bloody get them. Oh.
Yes, mate.
Copy. Yes, it's at the 88 current.
Yeah, Tony Quinn's up top. Oh. Yeah, do we do the podium? Mike's up there. Mike, he's not on comms. Here we go. No, we've got someone up there with them.
I'm down here with Sean.
Is his mic wired, is it?
Chris is with Mike now. Mike's just put his headset on now.
He can hear you now. Yep, he is okay to delay. Yep. My goodness, what a race here. The 101 here at Hampton Downs here on CRC Motorsport. You know, 5 minutes to go, I thought this welder from Auckland, Graham Smythe, was going to take the victory, but it all got turned around. Just one safety car, then a bit more traffic. So beautifully described by John Martin as what can happen, Auckland traffic, as he said. But we do have some results. They're probably a lot to digest. Let's catch up with Jamie.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Didn't quite go to plan for Graham Smythe, unfortunately, but take nothing away from Roger Largo, David Russell with the victory here at Hampton Downs ahead of John Martin, Luvashin Padiarchi, Grant Daniel, Nathan Morecambe in third, Daniel Bilski, Garth Tander. What a result for them up into fourth. They had an up and down day. Len Talbot, Jake Foraker in the fifth position ahead of Tony Bates, Christopher Mees, Peter Hackett, Dominic Story in seven, and a new lap record here at Hampton Downs. Clark Quinn, Mad Mike Widdett on debut. Mad Mike with a top 10. Ash Samardi, Tony D'Alberto making that longer run in the first stop. ending up in 9th ahead of Tony Quinn and Greg Murphy, salvaging 10th out of what has been a tough weekend. Clark Proctor and Andrew Porter, outstanding effort for them in the 11th position. A very, very well performed Kiwi team. Simon Ellingham and Tim Miles, another Kiwi team there in 15th. Nick Chester, John DeVeth in 17th, completing the best of the Kiwi teams. Didn't go quite to plan for Richard Moore and Tony Longhurst. They brought out the last safety car that brought all of that action on in the last few laps of the Hampton Downs 101. Of Peter Edwards, Graham Smythe, a DNF unfortunately, and they were right in the mix. The Medekis with issues, Matthew Simmons and Michael Caruso not making the end of the race at either. What a fantastic race.
Thanks very much, Jamie. Well, of course, out of all that, there was a top three, I should say a top six. Let's go to the prize giving now, the podium with Mike Cinch.
Hampton Downs 101 has been run and won. It is round 3 of the CAMS Australian Endurance Championship here at Hampton Downs. And we'd just like to thank Pirelli and Darrell Lee for the continuing support of this particular championship. I'd now like to welcome onto the podium Tony Quinn and Chris Montgomery from Pirelli to present the trophies. Well, I don't think you could script it a better end to a race if you tried. The drama just kept coming all day, and one team that managed just to scrape past all that were our third place getters. Would you please welcome Denia and Morecambe. And a very hard-fought battle for second position. Would you please welcome Martin and Patachachi to the stage.
Popular.
And the team that undoubtedly have had the best weekend here at Hampton Downs. They were in the top 10. They won that. Would you please welcome the winners of the 2016 Hampton Downs 101, Russell and Largo. Dave Russell, if you'd like to come over here for a moment with Largo and just give us a bit of a talk through how that all ended, mate.
Yeah, look, what an afternoon for us. You know, we were in the heat of battle at the start of the race, and obviously 101 laps is a long time. So for us, there was a lot going on. To come back from a couple of pit stops and a drive through was incredible. Big shout out to our team. Look, there's only a few of them down there. Half pit lane's got 12 or more people. So big shout out to our guys. To Roger, thanks for putting me in the car. Thanks to all our great sponsors, and thanks to all the crowd for coming out. Everyone's just was so pumped at the end of the race. So really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll crack on for Highlands in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
To Nathan Grant, well done. To the Porsche lads, Devashin and John, well done. To the team, unreal, eh? Unbelievable. To this bloke, Dave Russell, he's the man this weekend. Put it on pole. We deserve the win today, even with the extra drive-through. It's unreal. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Thanks for Quinny putting the track on. See you at Highlands. Cheers.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Thank you so much for coming here to Hampton Downs this weekend and being a witness to such an amazing event. But there's only one thing left to do, boys, and that'll be the champagne.
All right, bring it on.
I tell you about the only thing that's happened that I expected them was to move out of the way of the champagne, Craig, didn't you? But motorsport has a way of doing that. 400 Ks and that finish. Can you go through what actually happened there?
I don't think anybody can, but I reckon the race director will. There's no question about that. But what a fantastic race. I mean, you couldn't have really scripted a better race. Drive-through penalty for Largo and Russell, pole position. They had to drive back from that. But I think the drive of the day was really Peter Edwards and Graham Smythe. I mean, that surprised a lot of people. It snuck up on us. The Ferrari really wasn't in any of the practice or qualifying sessions leading up. They did a great race, but what a thing to happen on the last lap.
There's so many what-ifs that happen in motorsport, and obviously had more stopped in the Aston, then we did the sums, they would have come through and claimed the race, but that's woulda, coulda, shoulda. You're talking about race directors looking at things. What do you expect could happen?
There could be a post-race penalty applied to Nathan Bork, and there may not be. I mean, they might say that he was blocked, and you only are allowed to block a certain number of times under the rules, so they'll look at that. They'll look at onboard footage, and they'll decide whether a penalty should apply. If there is one, it'll probably be the equivalent of a pit lane penalty, which will drop them down some 30 seconds in the time order, but I can't say that's going to happen. It will be looked at. It'll be decided. Greg Crick is the driving standards advisor, very experienced, and he'll make the right call, no question about that.
You've caught action at tracks all over the place. How did Hampton Downs go on debut?
World-class track, world-class drivers, world-class cars, and dare I say it, world-class people here in New Zealand.
You'll go a long way. We'll be back more from Hampton Downs right after this. The man's here. Okay, so how long do you want, Nige? Yep, and back at 10:30 tonight. Radio. How many laps did you do?
I have no idea. I did 46. It doesn't count. Yeah, we're not in the game. So we got shafted by the first safety car.
Yeah.
Leave the car. Whoa! Go!
Oh.
Leave the
You're watching CRC Motorsport. Great to have you coming here today. Hope you've enjoyed the live coverage of the first big race at the all-new Hampton Downs. And Tony Quinn, fair to say you don't look like a man who's just driven an endurance race. You look very relaxed and refreshed.
Yeah, well, fortunately I have an apartment here, so I went and had a shower. We were effectively out of the game. Murphy just drove to the end. I think we finished 10th somehow. But the guys did an awesome job again. What awesome event. I was about to swear there, but what an awesome event. And I just really hope...
I had a wee moment just quietly. A bit like those moments at the end of the race. Were you out of the shower in time to see that?
Yeah. I just hope that everybody stays around to help us clean up.
There's a bit of cleaning up to a lot of carbon fibre spread all over the track, but it's got through its first big test, and there's a lot of people saying they enjoyed the action.
Yeah, look, I get plenty of compliments. I get them all. There's a couple of Kiwis having some fun. But no, people come up to me all the time and say, what a great job. And, you know, it is. And we've got a few things to improve. A few things went wrong. But all in all, nobody could fault it. Nobody.
And no one can say you tried to rig it for home advantage.
No, and I never do, never have.
Mate, and anything you've talked about the bumps in the track, otherwise it's done everything you expected it to do?
I think it was a great track. It was safe, and the drivers got to actually really like the bumps. They actually they got over them, and they managed to work them out, and I think they enjoyed it, to be fair.
Well, Tony, on behalf of motorsport fans around New Zealand, thank you very much, and good luck 2 weeks' time. Highlands in action.
Highlands, we'll be back.
Sweet. Thank you very much. And we're back later tonight here on CRC Motorsport on 3, bringing you action from 10:30, MotoGP and Formula E. And we'll also catch you next Sunday, so you know the drill. Stay safe on the roads. Bye for now.